Hey, everyone. I don't know if anyone's here yet. I know chat on YouTube is being wonky as well. I was trying to chat in Will Stream, the glare, and it was really strange. And I don't think Baker saw my comment either. And they're both still live right now. So if anyone joins when they're done, that'll be great. We're going to get into Officer Mullaney right now. We finished with Officer Seraph yesterday. I want to get through Mullaney, Flematti, and one other, the firefighter. I always forget that one's name. And then if we can get farther and where everyone still wants to keep going, we'll go. All right, so let's get started with Officer Mullaney.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the evidence you give to the court and jury in the case now and hearing should be truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Okay.
You can stand or sit, sir, whatever is more comfortable. Just make sure you speak into the microphone, please. Okay, whenever you're ready, Mr. Lally.
Thank you. Morning, sir.
Morning.
Could you please state your name and spell your last name?
Stephen Mullaney, Mullaney.
And how are you employed, sir?
I am employed by the Canton Police Department as a patrolman.
And how long have you been a patrolman for the Canton Police?
Since July 2020 and a full-time officer since August 2021.
And if I could call your attention to the evening of January 28th, 2022 into the morning of January 29th, 2022. Were you working on that occasion?
Yes, I was working the 11:45 p.m. to 7:45 a.m. patrol shift.
And were you dispatched to a call shortly after 6 a.m. on the 29th?
Yes, I was.
And where were you dispatched to, and what was that in regards?
34 Fairview Road for a unresponsive party.
Now, if I could turn back just for a second, as far as when you're assigned as far as a patrolman with the Canton Police, are there different sort of geographic sectors within the town to which you're assigned?
Yep, I was assigned to the east sector.
And it's Fairview Road within that east sector?
It's the west sector.
So you were assigned to the east sector, but dispatched to a call in the west sector, is that correct?
Correct.
Do you know why that was?
Yes, east. The east sector backs up the west sector.
So on the 28th, going into the 29th, what, if any, awareness did you have as far as the weather forecast or sort of what was predicted as coming?
I believe around midnight it began to snow.
And that's while you're on shift, is that correct?
Yes.
When you're on shift and you're on patrol, particularly when there's a weather situation as far as snow or something like that, what is it that you're doing on patrol?
Well, I stayed in the parking lot that shift, so didn't get stuck anywhere.
And as far as the snow that was predicted and the snow that fell, how much precipitation, what kind of a storm was it?
Well, by the morning, it was pretty heavy snow.
And by the morning, by what time?
Around 6 a.m.
So by the time that you were dispatched to that call, we were just talking about the snow was picking up and getting heavy.
Yes.
And as you were, so you were at the station when you received the dispatch, is that correct?
Correct, yes.
And about how far away is Fairview Road from where you were at the station?
Mile and a half, 2 miles.
And can you describe to the jury sort of the route that you took going from the station to Fairview Road that
Yep.
way?
I took a right onto Washington Street from the station, and then I took a right onto Dedham Street from Washington Street, a left onto Cedar Crest from Dedham, and then a left onto Fairview Road from Cedar Crest.
And so Fairview Road
Big hill, right?
runs sort of between two other more major roads in Canton, fair to say?
Yes.
And you mentioned Cedar Crest, is that correct?
Yes.
And Cedar Crest is off of Dedham?
Correct.
And so what is the other sort of major road on the other sort of intersecting side of Fairview Road?
Chapman Street.
So when you're coming from Cedar Crest onto Fairview, about how far into Fairview is 34?
2 houses down on the right.
So the house would have been on your right, is that correct?
Correct.
And in addition to yourself, who, if anyone else from your department was dispatched to this call as well?
Officer Saraf.
And who, if anyone, arrived first?
Officer Saraf had arrived prior to my arrival.
And Officer Saraf, as far as which direction was his cruiser facing? The same as yours, directly at yours, or something else?
I don't recall.
You recall seeing Officer Saraf during your en route time, sort of between the station and arriving on the scene?
I do not know.
Now, as far as when you're driving from the station to the scene, what, if anything, do you recall about sort of the road conditions, visibility, anything like that?
Visibility was difficult. I don't exactly recall how far you could see, but it was definitely coming down.
And at this point in time on January 29th, just after 6 a.m., what are sort of the lighting conditions? Has the sun come up yet? Is it dark out, or what's going on?
Hey, Barbara.
It was still dark out.
Glad
And
to see you here.
if you recall, what was sort of the vehicular traffic on the roadway between the station and your arrival on Fairview Road?
I don't recall there being any traffic.
I don't know if you can see the chat
now
that
it's
I put up there, but I know that YouTube's chat is wonky and crazy today on everyone's channels. So hopefully we can chat with some people on here. I hope YouTube fixes whatever issues are going on pretty quickly. But thank you for coming.
As far as when you are
Hey,
coming to
Len. Oh, good. I can see your comment too. You have to go to the store? Okay, we'll see you when you get back, Maylin.
the scene, do you recall whether or not you had to activate sort of your lights or your sirens or anything like that?
I believe I would have used the blue lights.
Do you recall using sirens?
I do not recall whether or not I used sirens.
And if you know, about how much time elapsed between the time that you received the call and the time that you arrived on Fairview?
3 minutes, approximately.
And when you arrived there, what, if anything, is sort of the first thing that you see?
I saw Officer Saraf towards like the front lawn, kind of surrounding the victim. There's a couple other people as well. And the fire department was on arrival right about the same time.
And so, beyond yourself and Officer Sarah from the Camden Police, were there other sort of town assets that were dispatched to this call as well?
The fire department.
And when you say the fire department, how many sort of vehicles or what was their response as far as?
I believe they had a fire engine and ambulance.
And do you recall if the fire engine and the ambulance came from sort of the same side as you from Cedar Crest, or did they come into the scene from the same from the opposite side as far as from?
I think they had come down Chapman Street to Fairview, and they were facing towards Cedar Crest.
Now, so you arrive there, you see Officer Saraf and people from the fire department, correct?
Yes.
And you indicated that you saw a person on the ground. Is that correct?
Yes.
And just for clarity purposes, at some point subsequent to this, you were able to identify the person that was on the ground. Is that correct?
Yes.
I think I forgot to
Is that
speed
correct?
this
Yes, sir.
up a little bit. I'm going so over.
And
Let's speed it up to 1.5.
where
If they
the
get
other people
too
that you
fast,
indicated were there,
you
where were they
guys
in
let
relation
me
to
know,
the time?
okay?
I think I don't really recall where everybody was upon my arrival, but I think everyone was kind of like in the vicinity around the curb to the street.
Now, as far as when you're first
Hey,
arriving,
Tuck,
and going up
how
to the
are
scene,
you?
were you able to see Mr. O'Keefe on the ground at that point, or did?
I saw people around him, but I had to get closer before I saw the victim on the ground.
And so the other people that you
Starting
saw around him, were they
Officer
kneeling down, standing up, or
Mullaney's
something?
I believe
testimony.
Officer Saraf was still standing up. I don't recall anyone else.
And so fair to say you saw Officer Saraf standing up near Mr. O'Keefe before you actually saw Mr. O'Keefe, correct?
Yes.
Now, this particular area where you saw Officer Saraf standing up and Mr. O'Keefe on the ground, what, if any, sort of additional ambient lighting did you observe in that area? Was there any street lights or anything like that around it?
Not that I recall.
Now, in addition to Officer Saraf, at some point did you encounter
No, he's
some other
already with
individuals or
throat
clearing
clearing.
people
Oh
on
my
scene?
God.
Mr. John McCabe.
And in addition to Ms. McCabe, were there any other female parties there as well?
Yeah, Carrie Roberts.
And in addition to Ms. Roberts, was there any other female parties there?
Yes, Ms. Reed.
And just to be clear, do you see Ms. Reed in the courtroom today?
Yes.
And could you identify as to where she's seated or an article of clothing she's wearing?
Black dress.
That's a record reflected identification of the defendant.
Yes.
Now, prior to this call, did you have any prior sort of familiarity with Karen Reed?
No.
With John O'Keefe?
No.
With Jennifer McCabe?
No.
With Carrie Roberts?
No.
And when you arrive and you make those sort of initial observations, where is it that you go? What, if anything, do you do?
The fire department began their life-saving measures, and at one point we were able to get him onto the stretcher or onto a backboard, I believe it's called, and then onto a stretcher.
And what, if any, involvement did you have with that?
I assisted the fire department in placing him on the backboard and then helping get him onto the stretcher.
Now, as far as you mentioned that the where you came and located Mr. O'Keefe, do you recall sort of what position his body was in when you first observed?
He was lying face up, as was back on the ground.
And do you recall where he was in relation to the roadway, if you could tell?
Yeah, he was on the front lawn. So, I didn't know exactly where the curb was, but I would think about approximately 10 feet from the curb.
And so you mentioned that you couldn't tell exactly where the curb was. Why is that?
There was snow on the ground.
So the snow sort of covered the curb at that time that you're there. Is that correct?
Yes.
But you approximate it was about 10 feet into the lawn.
Yeah.
And the snow on the ground that you observed at that time when you first arrived, about how much snow had accumulated on the ground?
I'd say at that point approximately 6 inches.
And what, if any, snow did you observe on any part of Mr. O'Keefe's body when you first saw him?
There was really no snow, but you could tell that he had been in the conditions. It was almost as if it was like water, kind of like frozen on kind of to his face.
And did you make any observations, or what, if any, observations did you make beyond his face as far as sort of the rest of his body?
I don't recall really any other observations.
Do you recall how he was dressed?
I do not.
Do you recall any, what, if any, snow was on any other part of his body?
I do not.
Now, as far as Mr. O'Keefe was concerned, what, if any, observations did you make as far as any injuries?
Which obviously shows,
I did not recall
goes
the
to
injuries.
show you he was not
Nothing stood out to
buried
you
in
that
a
were-
mountain of snow.
And you assist the fire department getting onto a backboard, right?
Yes.
And where did Mr. O'Keefe go from there?
To the ambulance.
Did you go to the ambulance as well?
Not that I recall, no.
So fire department sort of takes over care of Mr. O'Keefe at that point.
Yes.
So after Mr. O'Keefe is lifted up, when he's lifted up, what, if anything, did you observe as far as the grounds that had been underneath Mr. O'Keefe and where he was?
I didn't recall anything. Observe anything? No. No.
You recall even looking sort of in that area?
No, I think he was in front of me, so I wouldn't have seen what was under him.
And so after Mr. O'Keefe is taken by members of the fire department over to the ambulance, what is it that you did?
Officer Sarif, at that point, we were trying to identify the victim, so I spoke to Ms. McCabe.
And without sort of anything that Ms. McCabe told you, about how long period of time did you talk to Ms. McCabe gathering information?
Approximately 2 minutes.
And who, if anyone else, did you speak with attempting to gather information regarding Mr. O'Keefe?
Ms. McCabe is the only one I recall speaking to.
Now, as far as the defendant, Ms. Reed, did you, what, if anything, do you recall her sort of doing as you're on scene and as you're going about what you're trying to do?
She was screaming, "Is that my boyfriend? Is he dead?"
When you say screaming in a fairly loud voice, correct?
Very, very loud, yes.
And as far as that sort of phraseology, as far as is he dead, how many times was that something she said once, more than once, or something?
Repeated many times.
And with the same sort of volume that she had said it with, as you described the first time?
Yes.
And as far as, if you know, about how long was the ambulance on scene before it left to go to the hospital?
10 minutes, approximately.
Do you know what hospital it went to?
Good Samaritan.
And after the ambulance left and went to the hospital, where did the three women that you're talking about being defendant, Ms. McCabe and Ms. Roberts, where did they go?
I believe they left the scene.
So did you have any, or what, if any, conversation did you have with any of them following that?
None.
Now, as far as Ms. Reed, the defendant, is concerned, what, if anything else, did you observe as far as her saying or her demeanor or anything like that?
Just the screams and she was very distraught.
Now, at some point, did Ms. Reed sort of stay in one place, or where did Ms. Reed go sort of around the cruisers and the ambulance and all of that?
I believe she went to one of the vehicles. I don't know if it was a cruiser or one of the cars, just stay warm.
And the other two women that were with her, as far as Ms. McCabe, Ms. Roberts, were they in the same general vicinity as the defendant, or were they separated, if you recall?
I don't recall.
Now, at some point after they had left the scene, what, if anything, were you advised by your dispatch in regard to Ms. Reed?
We were dispatched that, or Can't Control had advised us that she's making suicidal statements.
And so based on that, what, if anything, did you or the other officers that you were on scene with do at that point?
I don't recall exactly who, but someone had called Ms. Roberts to have Ms. Reed come back to the scene, and we section 12 her.
And so about how much time elapsed between the time that you learned that from dispatch and the time Ms. Reed arrives back on scene with Ms. Roberts?
5 minutes, approximately.
Now, you mentioned that there may have been other officers on scene, correct?
Yes.
So in addition to yourself and Officer Sarif, who, if anyone else from your department, arrived on scene while you were there?
Sergeant Good arrived, Sergeant Link at the time, and Lieutenant Gallagher.
And when was that in relation to when yourself and Officer Sarif arrived on scene?
Sergeant Good was there shortly after, and then Sergeant Link shortly after him, and then Lieutenant Gallagher after that.
And in total, as far as sort of the earliest and the longest, about how long was it until Lieutenant Gallagher arrived on scene?
I'd say less than 45 minutes.
And in total, how long was it that you were on scene that morning?
90 minutes to 2 hours.
And during the course of time that you were on scene, at some point, did the sun come up?
Yes.
And during the time that you were on scene, as far as the conditions, and let me ask just a little bit more about that. You indicated something about snow being on the ground and not being able to see it, correct?
Yes.
What, if any, sort of other things in addition to that, from a weather perspective? What was the temperature like out at that time?
It was very cold. It's cold.
Could you, or do you have any estimate as far as to how cold?
25, and it was windy.
And when you say windy, could you expound upon that as far as like what kind of wind? Like, are we talking constant wind, gusts, or something?
I would say gust to constant.
And fairly strong winds, light winds, what kind of?
Not necessarily strong, light winds, but it was definitely windy.
And during that sort of total time, about 90 minutes or so that you were on scene, was the weather consistent throughout that entire period that you were on scene?
That I recall, yes.
Now, in the area where you first observed Mr. O'Keefe's body on the lawn, after his body was removed by the fire department, what, if anything, did you observe sort of in that general area?
Nothing.
Now, again, you said that Mr. Reed was brought back to the scene or around Fairview Road at the same time by Ms. Roberts, correct?
Correct.
You know where she went from there?
She was transported to Good Samaritan.
Different ambulance than had taken Mr. O'Keefe.
Correct, different ambulance. Yeah.
Now, as far as Mr. O'Keefe was concerned, you assisted getting him onto the backboard, is that correct?
Dumb
Yes.
question.
You also assisted
What
getting
is
him onto the
he?
stretcher?
Yes.
And beyond sort of the visual observations that you made, did you have occasion to, in that process, have any sort of tactile observations? Did you come into contact with Mr. O'Keefe's body at any point?
No.
Beyond what you've already testified to, did you make any other observations at any point of Mr. O'Keefe's body or any injury?
No, not that at all.
Sir, I'm going to direct your attention up to the screen over here. Ms. Gilman, if you could just put up Exhibit 25 and just sort of pause it as soon as it comes up. So, Officer Mullaney, I'm directing your attention to the screen and what's been marked as Exhibit 25. Generally speaking, what's depicted up on the screen here, is that consistent with what you recall as far as the conditions when you were responding to Fairview Road that morning?
Yes.
And Officer Mullaney, directing your attention to what's up on the screen, is going to be marked as Exhibit number 9. Do you recognize what's depicted in that photograph?
Yes.
What do you recognize?
That's 34, Fairview.
And that's how it's depicted in that photograph. Is that a
I
relatively
keep
accurate
going
portrayal of
back to
what you
this
observed?
every time they show this photo, and it is so deceptive using this photograph over and over again. I swear, looking at this picture, you could almost feel like if some guy's way over here to the left, where the flagpole would be. Yeah, I could see them, walking out the house, going to their car, worrying about getting in it, staying warm, and brushing out the snow real quick. But when you truly realize how tiny that yard is, like, I don't know, they definitely took all these pictures with that in mind on purpose. Like, it's just another crazy thing to me that they got away with.
The residents on the morning of January 29, 2022.
Yes.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have exhibit number 18. And again, Officer Mullaney, what's up on the screen? Do you recognize what's depicted in exhibit 8?
Yes.
And what do you recognize that?
That's 34, Fairview.
That's sort of a different view, is that correct?
Yes.
Now, with regard to the residents, if I'm standing on the street and I'm facing the residents as in the previous photograph, the area of the lawn where you first observed Mr. O'Keefe laying on his back with his face up, would that be to the left of the residents, the right of the residents, or that center, or something else?
Left.
And what, if anything, did you observe sort of in that general area as far as any sort of landmarks?
Oh,
or
big
things
that
were
yard
in that
looks.
area?
A fire hydrant and a flagpole.
Angle.
And may I approach the witness room?
Yes.
So, officer, if I could ask you, using that later point of directing, if you could direct the jury's attention to where in that photograph, if anywhere, you recall Mr. O'Keefe's body being located when you first.
Right in this area.
Thanks. If I may have one moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
I have no further questions to this witness. Your Honor.
Right. Cross-examination.
Thank you, Ron. Good morning, officer.
Good morning.
Officer Mullaney, you and I have never met before, correct?
Correct.
We've never spoken about this case?
No.
Is it fair to say that
I'm getting
when
deja vu.
you were
Did we watch
dispatched to 34
Mulaney?
Fairview Road on January 29th of 2022,
Where?
you were
We didn't
a
watch
part-time
Mulaney.
officer at that point?
I
No, I was
keep
full-time.
coming back. Did we watch this?
When did you
or
start
I
at the
see
Canton
his
Police
testimony
Department?
before?
July 2020.
No, I'm
Did you
thinking
start
of-
as a part-time officer?
I did.
We watched therapy yesterday, I know.
I misunderstood your testimony. You actually became full-time in August of 2021.
Correct, sir. Yes.
All right. So you had been full-time at that point for about 6 months when you received this call, correct?
Yes, sir.
And it's fair to say that you were the junior officer on scene.
Yes, it is.
You testified that you approached Fairview from the Cedar Crest side, correct?
Yes.
34 Fairview Road is much closer to the Cedar Crest side than it is to the Chapman side, correct? And when you take a left on Cedar Crest to enter Fairview Road, 34 Fairview is the second house on the right. Does that make sense?
From Cedar Crest, yes.
Yes. And you were quickly surmising that whatever action was taking place there was taking place on the front lawn of 34 Fairview, correct?
Yes, sir.
And one of the first things that you saw was there appeared to be a woman giving CPR to somebody on the ground.
Yeah, yes.
You didn't know who that woman was at the time, correct?
No, sir.
But you later learned her identity.
Yes, I don't recall which female it was that was giving CPR though.
Yeah, we just
So you don't recall
therapy
that it was
yesterday.
Karen Reed who was giving CPR to
see
John
more
O'Keefe?
of
I don't know who it was.
At some
testimony.
point in time, you came in contact with Karen Reed, correct, while you were on scene?
Not direct contact, but I was on scene when she was there.
I mean, you were there until about 8 a.m.,
Yeah.
correct?
Yes.
And you were dispatched shortly after 6 a.m.,
Yeah.
correct?
Yes, sir.
You were there for approximately 2 hours, correct?
Yes.
You were there when Karen Reed was there when you showed up, correct?
Yes.
She left and she came back to the scene, correct?
Yes.
And you were there when she came back, correct?
Yes, sir.
So with regard to your contact with her, she certainly was within eyeshot, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you actually at some points were closer to her than you are to me right now, correct?
Yeah.
How close did you get to her?
10 feet.
All right. With the court's permission, I'd like to walk toward you and have you stop me when I'm at the point when you were at your closest to Karen Reed. What can I do that, Your Honor?
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you.
Right there.
Okay. And when you were this close to her, and you're estimating this to be about 10 feet, correct? When you were this close to her, was there anything blocking your view of her face?
Not that I recall.
All right. You noticed, obviously, that she had blood on her face, correct?
I did not notice that. No,
You didn't notice that she had blood in her hair.
I did not notice that.
You did notice that she was absolutely hysterical.
Yes.
She was completely distraught.
Yes.
She appeared to be in shock.
Yes.
And there was a contrast between that demeanor that you observed with regard to Karen Reed and the demeanor of one of the other women on scene, Jennifer McCabe, was there not?
Can you kind of explain further?
Sure. Karen Reed was screaming, correct?
Yes.
She was yelling, correct?
Yes.
She was hysterical and distraught, correct?
Yes.
Jennifer McCabe was not.
Correct.
And you actually had more contact, direct contact with Jennifer McCabe that morning, correct?
Yes.
And you spoke to Jennifer McCabe for a good 2 minutes, correct?
Yes, sir.
Face to face.
Yes, sir.
You were closer to Jennifer McCabe than you ever got to Karen Reed, correct?
Yes.
You were able to observe her demeanor.
Yes.
You were able to hear her tone of voice.
Yes.
You were able to hear how loudly she was speaking, correct?
Yes.
You were able to hear how quickly she was speaking.
Yes.
During those 2 minutes that you were face to face closer to Jennifer McCabe, she was not screaming, correct?
Correct.
She was not yelling.
Correct.
She was not hysterical.
Correct.
She was not distraught.
Yes.
She was calm.
Correct.
Objection, Your Honor.
I'll allow it, but let's move on.
Jennifer McCabe didn't have any blood on her face, correct?
No.
And you didn't see any blood in Jennifer McCabe's hair, correct?
No.
Now, with regard to what you heard Karen Reed scream that morning, I just want to make sure I get your testimony correct. I believe on direct examination, you stated that she kept repeating 2 phrases, one being, "Is he dead?" and the second being, "That's my boyfriend," correct?
Yes.
And how many times do you think that she repeated those 2 phrases?
It's quite a bit. More than 10.
Like almost too many times to count, really.
Yeah, yes, sir.
And each time she said, "Is he dead?" what was her tone of voice?
Screaming very loudly.
Each time she said, "Is that my boyfriend?" what was her tone of voice?
Same.
And you got there not long after Officer Saraf, correct?
Correct.
In any of during the time that you were on scene and you heard Karen Reed screaming and yelling in this distraught and hysterical manner, you never once heard her say, "I did it," correct?
I did not.
You never once heard her say, "It's my fault," correct?
I did not.
You never once heard her say, "I hit him, I hit him, I hit him," correct?
I did not.
If you had heard any of those statements, you would have recognized that those would have been important to note, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you would have noted those in your police report, obviously, correct?
Yes.
Because you know that when you are drafting a police report, you want to include all the important details, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you want to be precise and accurate, correct?
Yes.
And so you didn't put those statements in your report because you never heard those statements come out of Karen Reed's mouth.
Yes, sir.
Now, while you were on scene, at some point in time, you were asked to participate in a search for evidence on that front lawn, were you not?
I was standing by. I didn't directly search for anything that I recall.
All right, and when you say you were standing by the area where John O'Keefe's body had been, correct?
Yes.
And how close were you to that area?
I was like right off the curb at that point on the street,
How many feet from where the body had been?
10 to 12 feet.
Okay, so maybe about the same distance as when I walked toward you, around that distance?
Yep. Yes, sir.
And how much time did you spend around that distance from where John O'Keefe's body had been?
I don't recall.
You were there for 2 hours, correct?
Yes.
So is it fair to say that you were sort of in and around that area multiple times during that 2 hours?
Yes.
Did you ever see anybody put up any crime scene tape at all?
I don't recall that.
You recall other officers sort of searching that area?
Oh, no,
correct?
they didn't put up crime scene tape because it
And
was
while you were near that area, you were certainly paying attention
snowy
to it,
and
correct?
windy.
Yes.
Oh my God. Like crime scene
Did you
tape
see
isn't meant
officers
for to
using any
handle.
equipment to
tough
clear some of the
situations
snow
like
in that area?
Yes, sir.
What did you see?
There's a leaf blower.
Where did that leaf blower come from?
I don't know.
Who had the leaf blower?
I believe it was Lieutenant Gallagher.
When did Lieutenant Gallagher arrive on scene?
45 minutes after I did, approximately. I don't recall the exact time.
And how big was that leaf blower?
Not too big.
Was it handheld or was it something that you pushed?
Handheld.
And who used the leaf blower?
Lieutenant Gallagher.
At what area or on what area did you use that leaf blower?
Come on.
And would that have been around the area where John O'Keefe's body had been?
Yes.
And you were watching him as he did that, correct?
Yes.
What other officers were in that area sort of watching what was going on or participating in the search for what was going on?
I don't necessarily recall where everybody was, but I believe it would be Sergeant Link and Sergeant Good.
And they were superior officers, correct?
Correct.
And you understood that these brother officers of yours were looking for evidence, right?
Yes.
They were looking for clues about potentially what had happened to John O'Keefe, correct?
Yes.
And you were paying attention too as they were doing their work, correct?
Yes.
You were looking for anything that might have been out of place, correct?
Yes.
If there was something large there that didn't appear to, be appropriate for a front lawn, you would have made note of that, correct?
Yes.
And if there was something small there, you would have still made note of that if it didn't appear to belong on a front lawn, correct?
Yes.
At any point in time, either before or after the leaf blower was taken out by Lieutenant Gallagher, did you see 45 pieces of bright red, black, and clear plastic pieces scattered all over the scene?
I did not.
Did you find or see even one piece of broken plastic?
I did not.
Now, when you came to the scene, John O'Keefe was still lying on the ground, correct?
Yes.
Did you see whether or not there were any blankets on scene?
No.
Did you know that one of the women on scene, that sister who lived in that very house?
I did not.
When you were speaking with Jennifer McCabe, at any point, did you learn whether she had actually gone into that house at all?
Objection.
Sustained.
Did you see Jennifer McCabe approach that house at any point when you were on scene?
No.
Were you alerted at any point by anyone that she went into that house while you were on scene?
No.
Did you ever see Jennifer McCabe come out of that house with blankets or anything else that might comfort John O'Keefe?
No.
What was your state of mind regarding whether there were any first responders in that house?
I wasn't aware of that.
Nobody told you?
No.
You had testified that at one point you saw Karen Reed being escorted into a motor vehicle,
Yes.
and that was one of the women on scene, her motor vehicle.
Yes, it was either that or a cruiser.
All right.
Both kind of the same area.
But you'll agree with me, at no point in time did you see Karen Reed and Jennifer McCabe in a vehicle together.
Not that I recall, no.
And at no point in time did you ever hear Karen Reed ask Jennifer McCabe to Google anything.
No.
I may have a moment here.
Yes.
I have no further questions. Thank you, Officer.
Officer Mullaney, you've been to other scenes in which there is a deceased person on scene, family members or friends around?
Yes.
And of those other scenes, does everybody who's a friend or a family member of the person who is injured or deceased, do they all react the same?
No.
Is every single one of them screaming and yelling different things?
No.
And there were actually 3 women on scene that morning, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so there was Jennifer McCabe, there was defendant, Ms. Reed, and there was Kerry Roberts, correct?
Correct.
And did you see any blood on Ms. Roberts' face or hair?
No.
Okay, was she screaming and yelling things and moving around the scene?
No.
Now, as far as the residence in 34 Fairview Road, did you see anybody go in or come out of that residence during the time that you were on scene?
No.
And as far as any of the other residences on the entire rest of the street, did you see any of the neighbors or anybody else come outside at any point in time?
I did not.
I have nothing further.
One question, if I might
Okay,
recross.
sure.
And I don't mean to be a wise guy, sir, but did any of the other neighbors on the entire street have the body of a dead police officer on their front lawn?
Objection.
All right, so that's sustained. All right. You are all set, sir.
Thank you.
All right, folks, it's 11 o'clock. We'll take our morning recess, 15 minutes. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Lally.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Could you please state your name and spell your last name for the jury?
Timothy Nutall. Last name is Nutall, Nuttall.
And what do you do for work, sir?
I'm a firefighter paramedic with the town of Canton.
And how long have you been a firefighter paramedic in the town?
I believe 5 years and coming up on 6.
And prior to working in that capacity with the town of Canton, what, if any, other employment have you had within sort of the same field as far as being a paramedic?
To back up significantly, I got my EMT certification when I was still in high school through CMTI out of Weymouth, they're now owned by Brewster Ambulance. From there, I was employed by Cataldo Ambulance. I worked primarily in the city of Chelsea, running BLS transfers and eventually 911 shifts in that city and that area of the world, if you will. From there, I decided I liked it. I decided to enroll in paramedic school. I went to the same school I went for my BLS certification, back to CMTI. I obtained my paramedic right before I turned 21. I stayed in the same area, primarily in Chelsea, and eventually edged my way into Everett a little bit and worked up there for about 7 years. During that time, I decided to be enroll into fire suppression side of things. So I was hired by the town of Scituate. I was put through the Mass Fire Academy out of Stowe, class 268 in Stowe, and worked for the Scituate Fire Department for about 18 months, and then transferred to Canton Fire Department in November of 2019.
Just a couple questions about what you had just spoken about. So when you use the term sort of BLS, what does that mean?
So in EMS, there's 2 kind of branches. BLS is basic life support, which is EMT basic. Smaller skill set, if you will. Still running 911 emergencies, but that was kind of the stepping stone to see if you could do the job, if you like the job, and then you can advance on to ALS, advanced life support, which is the paramedic side of things. That's a broader skill set, many more medications, many more interventions that we can perform in the field. Obviously, I enjoyed the BLS side, so I advanced to the ALS side.
Now, as far as starting with becoming an EMT, what, if any, you mentioned you went to a CMTI school, but what type of education do you require prior to getting any sort of graduating or certification or something like that? What are the classes like?
So it kind of runs the gamut for emergency medicine. You start mostly with anatomy and physiology, the human body. It progresses down to how those illnesses can progress and the natures of illness. Once that's kind of understood, then we advance on to pharmacology and interventions, just basic interventions that you can do. And then the basic interventions are further progressed into more advanced interventions throughout the program. Once you complete your didactic portion, where all that is kind of in the books, you then progress to clinical time in hospital. I can't speak to the hours off the top of my head, I can't remember, but many hours in the hospital, and then you progress to your field ride time, where you're in the back of an ALS ambulance with a preceptor, performing those skills, being evaluated and being watched to make sure you're not causing any harm or going down the wrong treatment pathways. From there, once you complete that, you sit your national paramedic written. I'm a nationally certified paramedic, so I had to sit that written, and then finally a practical examination. And once you pass all that, you're certified to be a paramedic.
And so with respect to both your training as far as becoming an EMT and then your training as far as becoming a paramedic, there's sort of a written portion and a practical portion as well. Is that correct?
Correct.
Can you use the term in there as far as a preceptor? What exactly does that mean within your field?
So a preceptor is a senior paramedic who's been practicing for, it varies from place to place, but the standard is usually 3 to 5 years, who will watch you to make sure that you're not, like I said, drifting down the wrong path in terms of treatment, making sure that your care is adequate and not doing any harm. Like my preceptors that I was with, they were medics in the city of Brockton. So they had been around for a little while, and they were excellent at what they did, and they taught me quite a bit. I learned quite a bit in my ride time from them.
And in your role, post getting your certification in regard to those, have you acted as a preceptor for other sort of younger, less experienced?
Yeah, so I was a field training officer for the Cataldo for a brief stint right before I left the company, and I'm currently a field training officer for the town of Canton.
And with respect to those certifications, is that sort of like a one-time blessing in perpetuity, or is there a continuing educational recertification process?
Right now for the town of Canton, that's a bid position. I submitted an application writing, and I was selected. So I'm currently on my group. I am our field training officer for my group 2.
Okay. And my apologies, poor question on my part. I was asking sort of more in general. So beyond the sort of preceptor sort of faction of that, just in regard to, in general, being an EMT and a paramedic, as far as your certifications are concerned, is that something that you have to continue? Is there any sort of recertification process, and how often is that?
Oh, I apologize. Okay, yes. So every 2 years, we are required, both by the national component and the state component, to complete a certain amount of hours per year for your recertification. I actually just recently recertified in March. I can't speak to the exact number of hours, but there's a national component, state component, and a local component, and the trainings are quite in-depth.
Now, turning your attention to your work with the Canton Fire Department, how many fire stations are there within the town of Canton?
We have 2 fire stations.
Where are they located?
Station 1 is 99 Revere Street, and Station 2 is 7 Sassamon Street.
And when you're working with the Canton Fire Department, is there a typical kind of schedule or shift schedule that you're working on?
So my work schedule is I work 1 24-hour shift, 1 24-hour off, 1 24-hour shift on, and then 5 consecutive 24s off.
And as far as the 24-hour shift, what time to what time does that run with the Canton Fire?
For us, we report at 0800 to 0800.
So 8 a.m. to 8 a.m.?
Yes.
And within both of those station houses, how much sort of apparatus, or how many different sort of vehicles and apparatus do you have within each of those station houses?
For Station 1, 99 Revere Street, we have Car 5 staffed with a captain. We have Engine 3 staffed with 1 lieutenant, 2 firefighters, and Ambulance 1, who is staffed with two firefighters. We do have a PB waiver, so we will run paramedic basic on Ambulance 1. However, that is primarily a double medic ambulance. And for Station 2, it's a very similar setup. That is Engine 4 with 2 firefighters and a lieutenant, and Ambulance 2 with the same setup as Ambulance 1. Both those stations also have ladders that run out of them, Ladder 1 and Ladder 2 respectively. And the crews from Ambulance 1 or Ambulance 2 will cross-span those ladders as needed.
Now, with respect, if I could turn your attention to January 28th into January 29th, so Friday into a Saturday. Do you recall 2022? Do you recall those days? Were you working one of those 2 days?
I was scheduled to work the morning of the 29th, I believe.
So you were scheduled to work essentially the morning 8 a.m. on the 29th until 8 a.m. on the 30th? Right. And prior to, where the 28th were going into the 29th, what, if anything, are you aware of as far as weather that had been forecasted or that was reported to come?
I was aware that there was a significant storm, supposedly. There was a significant storm coming through. I woke up very early that morning just to check. I took a peek outside at my house. I live in the city of Brockton. I noticed that the conditions it was starting to snow a little bit. So I got up early and got ready for work and left earlier than I normally do.
And about what time, which station were you assigned on that?
I was at Station 1, 99 Revere Street, and I was on Ambulance 1 for the day.
And about what time did you arrive at Station 1?
Due to the inclement weather, I believe I arrived several hours early. I showed up to the station around 5:45, 5:50 that morning.
And around the time that you were driving from your home to Station 1 in Canton, what, if anything, did you note as far as sort of driving conditions, visibility, anything else?
Snow was starting to accumulate. The roads, I drove through several towns. The roads were starting to be treated, but they weren't pristine. There was obviously a buildup of snow starting on my ride, which was part of the reason I left early, just either to relieve people if they needed to get out before the storm really hit, or just to help them with snow removal.
And to that point, when it comes to sort of snow removal at the fire station, what, if any, sort of duties and responsibilities do yourself and the other firefighters have to in relation to snow removal around the station?
So we're responsible around the station to keep what we refer to as the apron clear of snow. The apron is where we back our fire trucks into and out of the station. So we remove all that ourselves. We have a plow truck. However, we'll also shovel walkways and stuff for the public if they need to get in. So that was one of the primary for the crew was actually outside removing snow when I pulled in to the station that morning.
It may be pretty self-explanatory, but as far as the apron itself, why is it so necessary that the apron remain clear as far as snow is concerned?
Just to maintain a path for the emergency apparatus to get in and out in a timely manner.
Beyond sort of the snow accumulation that you noted on your way to work that day, what, if anything else, that you note as far as the weather conditions, whether it be temperature, winds, anything to that effect?
They were approaching blizzard conditions. It was windy. It was still very early in the morning, so it was quite dark, and it was windy and snowy. So we were approaching blizzard conditions, like I said.
And when you arrived there, did a call come into your station sometime around or shortly after 6 o'clock in the morning on the 29th?
Yeah, I arrived, as I previously stated, around 5:50. I put my gear, my firefighting structural gear, out with Ambulance 1, just in the event that there was an emergency. And as I was doing that, the emergency tones went off for a medical.
Do you recall what was the report in regard to, what was dispatch in regard to as far as medical was concerned?
The overhead dispatch came in as a unresponsive male in a snowbank at 34 Fairview Road outside. Unclear any further information. So when that came on, we had one of the paramedics that morning and one of the firefighters who was a relatively new firefighter. I made the decision to step on the ambulance to provide an extra set of hands as one of the more senior paramedics in the station at the time.
And correct me if I'm wrong, when you step onto the ambulance, you're essentially still sort of getting your gear on and getting dressed, right?
Correct. I was, as the tones were going off, and because I came in so early, I was still in civilian clothing. I had a Canton Fire t-shirt on. So I actually donned my turnout gear for that call.
And as far as the other individuals on that Ambulance 1 that were going to that call as well, who were they?
So it was Firefighter Paramedic Anthony Flematti and Firefighter EMT Matt Kelly.
And Mr. Kelly, he was sort of the less experienced one at that time. Is that correct?
Correct.
So you get into the back of the ambulance and start going to the scene. Now, as far as other sort of vehicles or apparatus, who, if anyone, or what if any other sort of vehicles were dispatched on this call as well?
The initial dispatch was Canton Engine 3 and Canton Ambulance 1. Due to the severity of the call, depending on how it comes in, the shift commander, which is car 5, he will usually respond to any significant incident. So he also added himself to the call just as a senior officer with us. So the final dispatch, I believe, was car 5, Engine 3, and Ambulance 1.
You know who was on Engine 3 and who was in car 5?
Car 5 was Captain Robry. Engine 3 was Lieutenant Greg Woodbury, Firefighter Frank Walsh, and Firefighter Katie McLaughlin.
As far as the ambulance 1 that you were in, obviously there's somebody driving, there's somebody in the front passenger seat, correct?
Correct.
And so who was driving, who was in the front passenger seat?
I don't want to speak out of turn. I honestly can't tell you who was driving. I was in the back. I was in the back patient compartment of the ambulance, just because there's only 2 seats up front, so I hopped in the back.
And so when you're in the back of the ambulance and you're going to the call, what is it that you're doing in sort of preparation for a ride?
So as I previously stated, I came in early, so I was donning my turnout gear. I had my boots and structural firefighting pants on. So I finished putting those on, and I put the rest of my gear in the back. And as we were driving to the scene of the incident, I started prepping the gear that we were going to need off the initial dispatch and unresponsive mail in the snow. So I grabbed our first aid bag, which has miscellaneous medical supplies, some IV supplies, and interosseous drill kit. The airway bag, which has just a bottle of oxygen, and then quite a bit of airway management supplies, and our cardiac monitor. So I had all of those prepped out and ready to go. So as soon as the ambulance was in park, we could step right out, ascertain what we had, and go from there. So when the ambulance arrived on scene, I had all 3 of those bags on my person, and we were able to, the entire ambulance crew was able to step out and provide patient care.
And as far as, if you know, approximately how much time elapsed between the time that you hear sort of the sound go off and you get in the ambulance to the time that you arrive on scene on 50?
I couldn't give you an accurate estimation of the time. Like I said, I was in the back. I was trying to prep everything and get myself kind of prepped just in terms of appropriate attire. So I couldn't give you a fair estimate.
As far as when you arrive on scene, you step out of the back of the ambulance, is that correct?
Yes.
And as far as the weather conditions where you were on Fairview, what, if any, difference was there between the weather conditions there versus the weather conditions when you were arriving at the city?
I remember, as I previously stated, I remember it was still very dark. The sun was not up yet. I remember the wind. It was quite windy that morning. The wind had, in my opinion, had seemed to have picked up since my drive in, and the snow was increased.
And so when you step out of the ambulance, can you describe to the jury sort of where you go and sort of what is it that you first see when you get up there?
So I stepped out of the ambulance and came around with all 3 bags. I could hear commotion. I could hear some screaming off in the distance. I couldn't really tell you where it was coming from because it was still quite dark. Came around the passenger side of the ambulance, walked in front of the ambulance, and there was a small huddle of 3 individuals and what appeared to be a human form laying in the snow. So we made our way over to that and went from there.
And when you come around the passenger side of the ambulance and you observe that and stuff, are you sort of turning left or right, or how are you heading when you come around the ambulance?
I came out of the ambulance on the passenger side and I took a left.
And you make your way over to the patient on the ground, is that correct?
Correct.
And as far as the other people that you observed around the patient, how would you, or what if any description do you have of those?
There were 3 individuals. I believe they were all 3 of them were female. My primary focus was the individual in the snow on the ground. I went right to him. I kind of bypassed everybody from there and went directly to that individual.
Is that sort of typically how you approach a scene, is just sort of tunnel vision right to the patient?
Typically on a call like that, where if somebody's unresponsive on the ground, you typically go directly to the patient and ascertain if they are breathing, if they have signs of life, because that is a time-sensitive matter.
And as far as the individual, not then, but at some point subsequent, did you learn the identity of the person on the ground?
It did. There was Officer O'Keefe, John O'Keefe.
And how was Officer Mr. O'Keefe's body positioned in relation to the ground when you first approached?
So I found him supine, laying in the snow. Immediately went to him and checked him for signs of life. We found none. We found no breathing, no pulse. So we immediately began performing high-quality CPR. I was at the head of the individual, so I immediately grabbed out of our airway bag a bag valve mask and began ventilating the patient, trying to get some oxygen into him while the others on scene, like I said, began high-quality CPR.
And again, maybe pretty well understood. When you use the term supine, what exactly do you mean?
He was laying on his back.
Laying on his back, his head sort of facing up, is that correct?
Correct.
And when you are responding to a call of this nature, there's you and there's other individuals on the ambulance as well, correct?
Correct.
And is there a certain division as far as treatment and diagnosis and things of that nature are concerned between you and the other people on the ambulance?
So typically, just to use the scenario of a cardiac arrest with 2 paramedics, it's generally split into the airway individual, or the airway monitor, and the, lack of a better term, code monitor. The airway individual will be responsible for ventilation and eventually advanced airway placement. The other part of that equation will monitor cardiac status, cardiac activity. They will deliver medications and a route for those medications, and they will work together to monitor that patient throughout. As I said, I was on the head. I just happened to fall at the head, so I took the ventilation portion of that.
And you use the term as far as a bag valve mask, is that correct? And can you explain to the jury sort of what that is?
All that is it's, for lack of a better term, it's basically a glorified balloon with a mask on it. When you squeeze that bag, that forces air into the airway, so you can ventilate an individual who's no longer breathing on their own.
And as far as obviously with your work with the fire department, there are sort of records or reports that are written in regard to treatment of different individuals on any given call, correct?
Correct.
Is there an acronym that's used within those reports as far as bag valve masks?
BVM.
And turning back to sort of when you initially approached where Mr. O'Keefe is, if you know about how far away from, where is he in relation to, well, let me back up. Okay. So you arrived at this residence at 34 Fairview Road, correct?
Yep.
Okay. So if I'm standing on the street and I'm facing Fairview Road, is Mr. O'Keefe's body to the left, to the right, center, or something else?
I would say to the left of center.
And what, if anything, did you sort of note or observe sort of in the general area as far as where Mr. O'Keefe was?
In terms of when I got to him. So when I first got to him, we checked for signs of life, and I was, as stated, at the head. There was a small pool of blood that seemed to be underneath him. It was hard to ascertain, again, because of the conditions. It was still very dark. It was snowing, and it was quite windy. So we were able to check the area as best we could with our handheld lights. But that was one of the things that I noted. There was a pool of blood.
Where Mr. O'Keefe's body was in relation to the roadway, if you know, how far away, where was it in relation to the roadway?
I estimated it about where the sidewalk met the front lawn of that residence. That would be my best estimation.
Do you have any estimate as far as footage or anything like that?
I would say about 6-8 feet, perhaps.
Approximately 6 to 8 feet from
Yeah.
the curb?
Correct.
So you indicated that, so what are the first things that you're checking as far as when you first arrived at a patient for the town?
I'm sorry, can you repeat?
That's okay. It's my fault. So as far as when you, let me back up for just 1 second. You use the term in there as far as the cardiac arrest, correct?
Correct.
Can you explain to the jury what you understand that term to mean based on your training experience?
So cardiac arrest is the cessation of a stable cardiac rhythm in terms of life. Typically, it's either asystole, pulseless electrical activity, or VFib or VTAC. Typically, you ascertain that, but there's no pulse. You check any of the pulses, be it femoral pulse, a carotid pulse, or radial pulse, you will find nothing. And when that is found, you go to life-saving measures, which is CPR.
And just in reference to one other term you're using there as far as asystole, if you could explain to the jury what you understand that term to mean based on your training experience.
Asystole, to put it as clear as I can, is a flat line. There's no electrical activity in the heart.
And so you're working sort of at the head of Mr. O'Keefe, is that correct?
Correct.
And sort of while he's still on the ground, and what is it that you're specifically sort of doing in reference to your treatment?
So I was, as we talked about earlier, I had a BVM, bag valve mask, and I had Mr. O'Keefe, I was ventilating him. So I had the mask on his face, and I was giving him positive pressure breaths with that BVM.
And as you're doing that, what, if anything else, did you observe beyond sort of blood pooling you've already talked about, as far as any tactile observations you made of Mr. O'Keefe, any visual observations you made of Mr. O'Keefe at that point outside of the ambulance?
He was dressed for the weather. He had several layers on. Other than that, our primary focus was kind of getting him extricated and out of the elements, just because it was, as stated, conditions were suboptimal, and we wanted to get him into an environment with better lighting and some heat, so we could further assess if he had any injuries and go from there.
And so the other firefighters, paramedics, excuse me, that are on the ambulance with you, while you're doing sort of that valve mask at his head, what, if anything, are they doing?
I believe the other firefighters that were dispatched, they were getting extrication equipment. I believe we put this individual on what we refer to as a scoop stretcher, which is basically a long plastic stretcher that we can roll an individual onto and then just pick him up, just for our safety and the safety of the patient. It's just really just a long board that we can pick up and then put onto our ambulance stretcher. So somebody was grabbing the scoop stretcher, somebody else was grabbing the ambulance stretcher, and I believe that was a coordinated effort on their part.
And I apologize for keep going back and forth, but if I could take it back just one moment
Mhm.
before that. So when you first sort of arrived to Mr. O'Keefe, you mentioned that there were 3 females sort of huddled around, is that correct?
Correct.
What, if anything, did you observe any of those females doing with respect to Mr. O'Keefe when you first got there?
That group seemed to be agitated. It was a scene of heightened emotions. As I stated, when I stepped out of the ambulance, I could hear screaming, I could hear people yelling, and it seems just to be that group was just quite agitated.
At some point, you are able to get him on the scoop stretcher and then over to the ambulance, correct?
Correct.
And when you get to the ambulance, what, if anything, did you note as far as what, if any, difference was there in the lighting in the back of the ambulance versus on the front lawn?
Lighting was significantly better. All of our ambulances have fluorescent lighting in the ceiling of the ambulance, so those were on, and we were able to see that there was some more injuries once we were able to get him out of his winter clothing.
And so, to that point, when you sort of first get into the back of the ambulance, what is sort of the protocol? What is it that each of you are sort of doing with respect to patient care at that point?
So the biggest priority is continuous high quality CPR. And that is the biggest thing with any cardiac arrest is uninterruption of compressions. So when we got him into the back of the ambulance, we continued CPR throughout. So while multiple people were performing CPR and eventually a mechanical CPR device was applied, those compressions were uninterrupted and others were removing clothing, I honestly couldn't tell you the number of articles of clothing, but I believe a winter jacket and a sweatshirt were removed. And then eventually he was, all the clothing was removed. And that's protocol for any cardiac arrest or any traumatic injury is usually all clothing is removed so we can have unfettered access to the individual to see if there are any other injuries.
And why is that protocol?
There is, you mentioned earlier, sir, that there is tunnel vision. The absence of clothing kind of helps to remove that so you can see everything. You can assess everything.
And you mentioned sort of a mechanical means of CPR. Is there a specific device that's used for that?
Yes, we use a Lucas device manufactured by Stryker. And for lack of a better term, it's basically just a plunger that does CPR. It frees up a set of hands for us, and that can provide CPR uninterrupted as long as the batteries last.
Now, at the time that you get him into Mr. O'Keefe in the back of the ambulance and you're removing some of the clothing, what, if anything, did you note at that time or at any subsequent time in regard to footwear?
To be candid, I wasn't really looking at the footwear. I believe it was brought to my attention when we eventually transferred patient care to the Samaritan Medical Center that the individual was missing a shoe. However, that wasn't my primary focus at the time.
And the items of clothing that were removed from within the ambulance, eventually when you transfer that patient care to the hospital, what, if anything, happens with that?
In terms of chain of custody of the clothing, that is typically brought in either with the individual or after, and that is usually deposited on the floor of the room where that patient is, and then the hospital takes custody of it. Occasionally we'll put it in bags. However, I could not speak to where that clothing went on this case.
But fair to say whatever clothing was taken off in the ambulance left the ambulance at some point?
Correct.
And went to the hospital, is that correct?
Yes.
When you have Mr. O'Keefe in the back of the ambulance and the lighting is better, what, if anything, did you observe following sort of the removal of the clothing as far as what, if any, injuries did you observe to Mr. O'Keefe in that sense?
He was noted to have, and I was right at the head, he was noted to have a hematoma on the right side of his face, just above his eye on his forehead. And there was some scratches on the right arm, the upper arm.
And you used the term as far as hematoma. Could you explain what you understand in that term to me?
Lack of a better term, is just an egg. He had a pretty good egg on his head.
And as far as anything beyond that, did you observe anything or note anything beyond the egg on the head and scratches on the right arm?
As we got further down our treatment modality, we went to place an advanced airway. It was noted to have some blood, some mucus, and some bile in the back of his airway that was then suctioned out before we placed our endotracheal tube.
And what is an endotracheal tube?
So an endotracheal tube is basically, it's just a plastic tube that is passed through the mouth into the trachea, through the vocal cords. It's a definitive airway, if you will. It isolates the trachea so you can better ventilate your patient. And you don't have to worry about any air getting into the stomach, any gastric insufflation. And that is the gold standard for cardiac arrest, is a properly placed endotracheal tube.
You mentioned there were some substances that were suctioned from the airway, is that correct? Okay, what were they again? I'm sorry.
I believe it was blood, bile, and mucus.
And do you have any idea how much of that was suction?
I couldn't give you an exact number, but it was enough that we needed to set up a suction system to remove it before we intubated.
And just turning briefly again to the arm, these were injuries that you observed on his right arm, is that correct?
Correct.
What any injuries did you observe on his left arm?
I don't believe I saw any, to my knowledge.
And as far as your memory, as far as his right arm, how far did it sort of extend and where was it located? Sort of upper arm, lower arm, both, or where was it?
I believe it was just below his shoulder. They ran, I would say, probably 3 or 4 inches from, I would say, about the shoulder right down to maybe 2 inches above the elbow.
And as far as Mr. O'Keefe's nose, what, if any, observations did you make of that?
Initially, it was noted to be very cold. The individual was cold all around to the touch, but his nose was also quite cold, quite white, just because he had been in the elements for a little while. There appeared to be a little bit of blood on his nose as well.
And through your training experience, are you familiar with a term or a device known as an OPA?
Correct, yes.
Can you explain to the jury sort of what OPA stands for and what is that device? What is it?
So an OPA, or oral pharyngeal airway, is basically a small plastic device that's curved. And when inserted into the mouth, all it does is it prevents the tongue from falling backwards into the airway and occluding the airway. It's relatively simple, but it's very effective in keeping an airway open.
Just turning back for one moment to the injuries that you observed on Mr. O'Keefe's right arm, were those injuries that were actively bleeding at the time that you observed them?
No.
What, if anything, did you observe as to that in reference to those injuries on the arm?
Those injuries seem to have been congealed. In my opinion, it looked like they'd been cold, which could have aided in the clotting of those injuries. But when we observed them, they were not bleeding.
And you mentioned a little bit about Mr. O'Keefe's nose. What, if any, observations did you make as far as any sort of digits, whether they be his hand, his feet, or something else?
So all of his digits on the upper extremities were noted they were very cold. They were immobile. They were very stiff. I'm presuming due to the exposure, because we did when we got him onto the ambulance when we were removing clothing, it was noted that he was all of his digits were very stiff. They were immobile, and it caused a little bit of problems just trying to get clothing off of him just because they were so stiff.
And taking you back outside of the ambulance just for a moment, you're sort of initially there and you're doing your assessment, and the 3 females are in your general area, correct?
Correct.
And at some point, you or any of the other paramedics or UTs on scene asked them any questions about what had happened or anything like that?
So as I was ventilating at the head, there was a small delay in just getting equipment, nothing significant, just enough time that as I was ventilating, I was able to ask, did anybody see anything? What happened? And there was one individual that replied several times, I hit him.
And did you know that individual at that time?
I did not.
Can you describe the individual that said that?
I would describe her as mid-40s, average build, average height. And the other two, very similar.
And with reference to that statement about hit him, is that something that she said once or more than once or something?
It was several times.
And as far as the tone or demeanor, how loudly was this being said?
As previously stated, they seemed to be erratic. There was a lot going on in that scene. It did seem to be said over and over and at varying volumes. And then there was just a lot of, everybody appeared to be quite flustered.
And the individual, one of the 3 females that said that, what any observations did you make as to her face or anything?
The individual that said, I hit him, appeared to have some blood on her face, presumably for attempting CPR prior to our arrival.
And you say presumably attempting CPR. When you first arrived at Mr. O'Keefe, what, if anything, did you observe any of the females doing with reference to Mr. O'Keefe?
Mr. O'Keefe was not being touched by any individual when I first got to him. That whole group was kind of pacing around, lack of a better term, kind of running around in circles. But Mr. O'Keefe was not being, there was no interventions being done to Mr. O'Keefe when I got to him.
And to be clear, sort of when you're in the back, fast forwarding now to sort of in the back of the ambulance, you're again sort of focused on the respiratory in the head, correct?
Correct.
And who, if anyone else from your department, is in the back of the ambulance, and what, if anything, are they doing that?
So at that point, I had myself and Nat Kelly, EMT Kelly. He was kind of with me for the head. One of the, for lack of a better term, easier operations of a cardiac arrest is ventilation. So Matt Kelly was assisting me with ventilations, is just squeezing the BVM to provide ventilation. The lead paramedic for the cardiac arrest was Anthony Flematti. He was running everything else. He was running the application of the cardiac monitor. He was monitoring the status of medications being administered. He was assisted with that by Katie McLaughlin, Lieutenant Woodbury, and Firefighter Walsh.
And at some point, Firefighter Flematti, excuse me, at this point that you're in the back of the ambulance, you don't have any sort of demographic information in regard to your patient, correct? So what, if anything, did Firefighter Flematti ask anybody else to do in regard to pain?
I believe he asked Firefighter McLaughlin to exit the ambulance and gather some information from the bystanders in terms of name, date of birth, any significant medical history or medications, just so we could further treat the patient.
And to the best of your knowledge, Firefighter McLaughlin leaves the ambulance to do that, is that correct?
Correct.
You weren't present for any of that, correct?
No.
So there's some period of time in the back of the ambulance and then the transport to Good Samaritan happens, is that correct?
Correct.
Can you recall where different people from your department were in relation to that transport to the hospital?
So the transport in the back in the patient compartment was myself, Firefighter Kelly, and Firefighter Flematti, with Firefighter McLaughlin driving ambulance 1.
Can I have just one moment?
Yes.
So when it comes to the report that you were testifying about before, there was a report generated in regard to this, is that correct?
Correct.
And who has the sort of duty and responsibility of compiling it?
That would have been Anthony Flematti.
And have you seen Firefighter Flematti's report in relation to this incident?
I have.
Can I approach with Sean?
Yes.
So, Sean, you're not going to ask you just to do that.
All right.
Do you recognize that, sir?
I do.
And what do you recognize that?
This is what I believe to be the NFIRS report written by Captain Robery and the patient care report written by Firefighter Flematti.
Thanks, sir. May I approach, Sean?
Yes.
I'm about to introduce and admit the next exhibit, I believe, in the system.
It's already pre-marked, or you're moving to introduce it now? Is there an objection?
May I have something else?
Okay.
Mr. Nutall, just directing your attention up to the screen there and what's been previously marked as exhibit number 9. Do you recognize what's pictured in that photograph?
I do.
What do you recognize? Is
I believe that's B34 Fairview Road.
that a relatively fair and accurate portrayal of what it looked like around the time that you arrived there, absent sort of lighting conditions and things of that nature?
Yes.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have exhibit number 18. And Mr. Nutall, if I could ask you, using that laser pointer before you, well, first let me ask you, recognize what's up on screen as exhibit 18?
Yeah, again, 34 Fairview Road.
And the area where you first observed Mr. O'Keefe supine on the lawn and the 3 females around him. You see that area in this photograph?
I do.
And if you could, using that laser pointer, just direct your attention to where in this photograph you see that.
I'm so sorry. I would say right around this general area, right about here.
And lastly, Ms. Gilman, if I could have exhibit number 14. And sir, do you recognize what's up on the screen as exhibit number 14?
I do.
When do you recognize that?
That I believe to be is where we found Mr. O'Keefe.
And as far as the pooling of the blood that you observed around Mr. O'Keefe's head, you observed that area within this photograph as well?
Yes.
You could again using that later point just direct his attention to where in this photograph you observed that.
They were right around in this general area. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. I'm sorry, we can have the lights back up. Your Honor, may I approach just to retrieve that?
Yes.
I have no further questions for this witness at this time. Ma'am.
All right, cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Firefighter Nutall.
Sir, how are you?
You were coming, I want to make sure I get the timing right. You were coming off of nearly a 24-hour shift when you got the call,
No, sir. I was reporting for duty that morning.
just starting the shift when you got the call. Understood. I want to ask one quick question that you mentioned just a couple of seconds ago under questioning by Mr. Lally. With regard to the clothing, the normal protocol for clothing that's removed from a patient.
Yes.
You said it's oftentimes just sort of discarded onto the floor.
In terms of in the ambulance or at the hospital?
Either one.
Yes.
Okay. Both?
So typically, when we remove clothing in the back of the ambulance, it's generally done with trauma shears. So we will expose and then kind of fold over. That clothing is then usually left in place. We'll do a quick roll just to check the back of the patient, and then he's usually rolled back if there's nothing found, and it's typically left there. In terms of like big puffy jackets, if you cut a puffy jacket, it just makes quite the mess. So yeah, exactly. It's a disaster. So typically those bigger jackets are just removed, and that is when we removed that type of article of clothing, that's when we noticed that his hands were quite rigid.
So that's what happened in this case.
Correct.
You removed the heavy jacket, discarded it, got it away from the body so you could better assess the injuries.
Correct.
And it was only then, after you removed this big heavy winter coat, that you could assess that his hands were stiff and cold.
We noted the hands, but it came more into light, if you will, when we removed that coat.
And you have as good a memory about that as you do the rest of the scene that morning.
In terms of removing the article of clothing?
Correct.
I did not remove any article of clothing. I was ventilating.
But you remember him having a big jacket on.
Correct.
Okay. And you remember that as well as you remember the other specifics of the incident.
Yes.
Okay. When responding to a scene, I want to dovetail on the same subject, but just come at it in a little bit different way if you indulge me. When responding to a scene, one of your jobs has to be to sort of immediately take note of and assess the situation of the patient that you're dealing with. Correct. Motorcycle accidents can be very different than a drowning.
Exactly.
Someone in this case exposed in a snowbank, you're going to deal with or assess and note the weather.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
You're also going to note and assess the condition of the patient.
Correct.
As it pertains to the weather.
Yes.
So someone, for instance, that's in a snowbank naked,
Mhm.
no clothes on at all, is going to be a little bit different assessment than someone who's completely dressed for winter. Correct.
The initial assessment with every patient is going to be automatically circulation, airway, breathing.
Understood.
We approach this individual the exact same way. Is automatically went directly to cardiac. Make sure.
I guess what I'm asking is your attention is focused on some of those details for sure.
Correct.
And that's how you remember that big heavy coat that he was wearing. Correct.
I remember he was appropriately dressed. Correct.
Okay. As a matter of fact, you testified to that in the grand jury that, quote unquote, he had a heavy coat on.
Yes.
Consistent with how you're testifying today. Is that right?
Correct.
All right. Your Honor, I'd like to mark 2 photographs as next in order. Not yet been marked. I believe it would be 160,
It doesn't matter so much the number, but why don't you just show the prosecutor the photos?
161 and 162 in order. May I approach?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to ask you, first of all, what did you recognize what's depicted in those photos?
Honestly, sir, I couldn't recall the exact, but yeah.
Did you recognize them?
Yes.
Does that appear to be what John O'Keefe was wearing when we found him?
I don't recall, sir, to be perfectly honest.
May I approach him?
Yes.
Do you recall this being part of, let me ask you a different way. Do you remember somebody cutting this off of John O'Keefe at the time?
I remember the clothing being removed.
Okay. But you don't remember this clothing?
I could say that he had clothing removed, but I couldn't tell you exactly what it was.
And you just look at these. This, what I'm holding in my hand, appears to be the front and back of a.
So don't hold it up to him from that distance where he said he doesn't recognize it. You can put it back in front of him. Don't hold it up for the jury, please.
May I?
Yes.
That appeared to be a thin cotton hoodie.
Yeah, that appears to be a thinner layer of clothing.
Okay. May I approach?
Yes.
Not a heavy coat. Fair.
Fair.
Not a winter jacket.
Fair.
Is it fair to say you had a lot on your mind when you were out at that scene, correct?
In terms of just a
Saving a man's life.
Correct.
Your credentials are impressive. You were there focused on one thing, and that is trying to make sure that a man did not die.
Correct.
Would you agree that that was your primary concern and your primary focus the entire time you were at the scene?
Correct.
You weren't necessarily worried about what other individuals were doing, correct?
No.
If I asked you right now off the top of your head, tell me exactly the number of law enforcement officers that were there at the scene, probably couldn't tell me, could you?
No.
If I asked you whether or not you remember every single civilian that was at the scene? Probably couldn't tell me, correct?
Outside of the three?
Outside of the three.
Correct.
Any other civilians?
Not that I noted.
Okay. Matter of fact, you can't even identify the three civilians other than generally middle-aged, 40s, Caucasian, female.
Correct.
You said all three of them sort of look alike, right?
Without the only defining feature on one of the individuals was one of the individuals did have blood on their face.
So some of the specifics of that scene, you didn't pay special note to, correct?
No, we were focused on patient care.
Is it fair to say that, specifically as it pertains to what the victim was wearing, your memory might be a little faulty where that's concerned?
Sure.
Okay. I mean, nothing wrong with that. You were focused on something completely different.
Correct.
You did notice certain injuries on Mr. O'Keefe's person, correct?
Correct.
And you indicated on direct examination that once you got him into the back of the ambulance, you, as you put it, you had a quote unquote much better picture of what you were dealing with. Is that right?
Correct.
You testified at the grand jury that you noted that once he was in the back of the ambulance under better lighting, you were able to tell that he had trauma to the right side of his head.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yes.
Are you talking about the major trauma that he suffered to the back of his head or the egg that you earlier described?
I was more just because it was directly in front of me. It was on the front side of his head.
Okay. So it wasn't the right side of his head. If you said right side of your head, you might point above your ear, right?
Correct,
That's not
yes.
what you're talking about.
I was, and if, to use my person, I would say right here. So it's more towards the right, above his right eye.
Right of center, but still on the front of his head.
Correct.
And you did not make any note of another injury on the back of his head.
No.
You talked about the injuries to the right side of his arm, correct?
Correct.
You noted that those injuries appear to be scratches.
Yes.
That's your word, not mine, right?
Correct.
You didn't say that those were blunt force trauma.
No.
You didn't say that there were abrasions.
Scratches and abrasions, in my point of view, seem to go hand in hand.
But the word that you used was scratches.
Yes, they were like furrows down.
Say that again?
Furrows, if you will, for lack of a better term. Just
I don't understand that word.
so if you remove something,
Yes.
like you create a furrow in the skin. Is that?
Furrows.
Yes, there you go. Sorry, excuse my accent.
No. I'm on your turf.
Fair enough.
I'm so sorry. Boy, that one. Oh, it's gonna be a meme somewhere.
Hey, my cousin Vinny.
Yeah, got it. All right. So when you said furrows, you made your hand in almost like a claw and drug it against your right biceps.
Objection.
Sustained.
Can you repeat the movement that you did, the jurors, when you said furrows?
Objection.
Sustained. Just move on to the next question, please.
You would agree that a very common cause of hematoma over one's eye is being hit or punched.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yes.
You said that Mr. O'Keefe did have such a hematoma over his right eye, correct?
Yes.
Did you also see a laceration under the eyebrow but above the lid on his right eye?
I don't recall.
Did you see a laceration on Mr. O'Keefe's nose?
I don't recall.
You did note that there was some blood on his nose, correct?
Correct.
That possibly that came from a small laceration.
Yes.
In your experience, well, let me ask you another question. Did it look like he had, in addition to the egg on the right side of his head in front, did it also have a black eye on the left side?
If memory serves correct, yes.
So both eyes were blackened.
Primarily the right side, if memory serves.
Okay. And the laceration toward the right side.
Yes.
Over the right eye. Are those injuries that you just described consistent or inconsistent with some sort of physical altercation?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained. Next question, please.
Did it appear to you, just from your initial assessment, given your experience, training, and background, that those injuries looked like you'd been in a fight?
Objection.
I'll see counsel at sidebar.
Thank you.
Sir.
Great. In your experience as obviously a training firefighter, tell me the word again that you used.
Field training officer, a preceptor.
Thank you. As a field training officer, have you seen in your experience the product of the injuries that can be produced from fistfights?
Yes.
Okay. Injuries to the face.
Yes.
Injuries to the mouth. Injuries to the nose.
Yes.
To the ears.
Yep.
To the eyes. Defensive wounds on the hands.
Yes.
Did you note we've already talked about, I don't want to go over all this again. You've already noted what the injuries to the face were that you saw Mr. O'Keefe having suffered.
Yes.
Were those consistent or inconsistent with a physical altercation?
I couldn't say.
Were they consistent or inconsistent with being in a fight?
I couldn't say.
Was that egg over his right eye consistent or inconsistent with him having been punched or hit?
I couldn't say.
I thought you said that one of the common causes of an egg like that, a hematoma, as you put it, over someone's eye, is being hit or punched.
There's quite a few reasons that somebody could get an egg, such as that over their head there. I mean, you can get hit with a golf ball,
Of course.
for instance.
I'm not asking you to the exclusion of everything else.
Yeah.
I'm asking you, is it consistent?
It's consistent. It could be.
Okay. And the other injuries as well?
Correct.
Okay. Did you see bruising to the back of one or both of his hands?
His hands were, as stated, they were very cold and very white. They were not well perfused. And when you don't have adequate perfusion, swelling and smaller injuries don't typically present themselves, if you will.
So you may not have seen it.
Correct.
But the bruising may have been there.
It might have been there. It just wasn't observable just due to the condition of his hands.
Just made over.
Yes.
Okay. You indicated that you were not present when your colleague, Katie McLaughlin, was questioning anybody at the scene, correct?
Correct.
She's tasked with that responsibility, but you did not engage with her.
Correct.
I mean, when I say engaged with her, you weren't standing there with her.
No, I was in the back of the ambulance.
You claim to have heard the statement, I hit him,
Yes.
several times from the woman with blood on her face.
Correct.
You indicated that she was erratic,
Correct.
hysterical.
Correct.
You said, for lack of a better term, running around in circles.
Yes.
She seemed despondent or distraught,
Very distraught.
very upset.
Yes.
Was she saying anything else that you recall?
To me, I heard I hit him, and then I went back, obviously continuing on patient care, focusing on patient care.
Did you hear her say, could I hit him?
I heard I hit him.
That's what you believe at this point.
That's what I heard.
Okay. Where exactly were you?
I was crouched at the head of Mr. O'Keefe.
Okay. You were asked that exact question at the grand jury, correct? To describe where you were and who was doing what.
To my knowledge, yes.
Okay. You were asked a question when you spoke to her and she said, I hit him. Were you with the other representative, sir, there at the time? Were there other people around you? You remember being asked that question by a grand juror?
I don't recall.
Do you remember answering, no, there were other people around me. I had paramedics Flematti with me. I believe Firefighter Kelly was there as well.
Correct. So the three of us were all providing patient care around Mr. O'Keefe.
And you indicated that we were all there together. You were kneeling and you were doing the airway while you called him Tony.
Yes, that's Anthony Tony. Yes.
All right. He was doing the CPR, correct?
Correct.
And it's absolutely clear in your mind that when that statement was made, you were knelt down over Mr. O'Keefe. Flematti was doing CPR. Kelly was with you guys, and you posed the question to her, do you know him? Correct?
Correct.
Correct. So I want to make sure I understand this. You said, as you're knelt down, do you know him? Directly to the female. And she answered your question with, I hit him.
Yes.
But that's not what you told Trooper Proctor in a February 8th interview.
I don't recall what I told Trooper Proctor.
Let's start at the beginning. Do you remember having a conversation with Trooper Proctor on February 8th?
I do.
That was obviously much closer in time than your grand jury testimony, correct?
Correct.
And years closer in time than your testimony now.
Correct.
Do you recall on February 8th telling Trooper Proctor that while you were rendering aid, you heard Karen say, I hit him, to another female on the scene?
To another female, as I stated, I heard several times I hit him. In terms of who that was directed towards, I mean, again, focused on patient care.
Understood. My question was a little bit different. Do you recall telling Trooper Proctor specifically that while you were rendering aid, you heard Karen say, I hit him, to another female on the scene, and the other female told Karen to be quiet?
I do recall that.
Okay. That's not what you testified to today, though.
Okay.
Matter of fact, that story has changed to you posed a question and she answered your question. Correct?
Correct.
So which is it?
So when ventilating a patient, typically that is also used to gather information from bystanders, because as I'm ventilating, I can real quick look around. Do you know this individual? Do you know anything about this individual? That's fairly typical for any scenario in this. It's a very quick information gathering strategy.
But you'll agree that your testimony today has changed from what it was from your statement to Trooper Proctor on February 8th.
I don't know if it was so much to say change, sir. To be honest, I don't fully recall that meeting with Mr. Proctor.
I'm sorry.
I remember meeting with him. However, I don't fully remember what was discussed.
So it's fair to say that your memory is a little bit faulty as it pertains to that time frame.
Absolutely.
When you went to the hospital with the patient, did you ever inform any of the doctors or nurses or medical professionals at the hospital that you had heard a female claim to have hit John O'Keefe, and that's the reason for his injuries?
I did not give the report to the hospital.
So the answer to that is no.
No.
As a first responder and a medical professional yourself, obviously you know that the cause and manner of the victim's injuries are incredibly important as it pertains to assessing how to treat that patient.
Correct.
Once you got back to the station and to take a breath, did you write any report?
I did not. No, I did not write the patient care report.
So you didn't write a report, just to finish my question, you didn't write a report that said, by the way, while I was out at the scene, I heard a female say, I hit him, and that's the cause and manner of the injuries.
Not to my knowledge.
Well, you would know if you had a report that said that.
Correct.
You did not.
I did not write the patient care report.
Okay. At any time that day or any day subsequent thereto, did you contact the Canton Police Department for the first responders?
I did not.
So let me finish my question. And say, by the way, just so you know, I heard this woman say, I hit him out at the scene.
I did not.
Did you ever, on that day or any day subsequent thereto, contact the Massachusetts State Police and say, I heard this person say I hit him?
I did not.
So the first time you ever repeated that statement was on February 8th with Trooper Proctor.
Correct.
And by the time we've come full circle to today, that statement has now pivoted.
In terms,
You didn't overhear the person say it to a female. Now she's talking directly to you now.
she spoke directly to me, yes.
Have you, just one last point, you've obviously noted that this case has gotten an enormous amount of notoriety, correct?
Correct.
How many times would you say that you've discussed this case and this incident with your fellow firefighters?
It's brought up around the station semi-frequently. However, being involved in it, we try to stay clear of it just because we are involved in it.
So the answer is, there have been many discussions,
Yes,
probably daily.
frequently.
Have any of those discussions helped you with what you earlier described as a little bit of a faulty memory around that time frame?
Objection.
You can have that. Have they?
Repeat the question for me, sir.
Sure. Have any of those discussions helped you with what you earlier described as a little bit of a faulty memory?
The memories that I have and the ones that I'm bringing up, I don't believe that they've changed. You know, I played them over in my head to the best of my ability, and I don't believe my story is swayed. If they've been enunciated incorrectly on my part, it wasn't intentional.
Understood.
Yeah.
And nobody's casting aspersions. Memory's a funny thing. So your memory is as good about that as it is about that winter coat.
Yes, sir.
Thanks. That's all I have.
Mr. Lally?
Mr. Nutall, when it comes to you being asked about consistency of causality as far as different injuries that you observed on Mr. O'Keefe, correct?
Phrase that for me.
Poorly phrased, Michael. So you have been asked on cross-examination about some things that the injuries you observed on Mr. O'Keefe could be consistent with as far as having been the cause of those injuries, correct?
Correct.
And how many sort of myriad of other causality or how many myriad of other sort of things could have also been a cause of the injuries that you observed?
As stated, a lot. It's not typically just physical altercations. It could be, again, a golf ball could hit you in the head. That could cause similar injuries.
Just for clarity purposes, when you were asked about a particular time frame, were you talking about the time frame of January 29th, or were you talking about the time frame of February 8th when you met with Trooper Crawford?
Sorry, sir, rephrase that for me.
Let me withdraw that and move on to something else. So just again, for clarity purposes, when you were asked about some statements that were attributed to you to Trooper Proctor during the interview, correct?
Correct.
And so with regard to what you recall differently, is it the statement that the person, the female with blood on her face, made to you, or the statement of the other female telling that person to be quiet?
So as stated, real quick, down and dirty, I asked, do you know this person? To which I hit him. And then in the background, I remember hearing over and over, I hit him. That was kind of pushed towards the back, and patient care took priority, if that answers your question.
Do you recall specifically at this time the other statement that you were asked about as far as whether or not the other female told that female to be quiet?
I do remember that, correct.
And the other statement as far as the female with blood on her face, and again, that was the differentiating character between the two females that you observed there, correct?
Correct.
And your memory of that statement is I hit him, correct?
Correct.
Nothing further.
All right, Mr. Nutall, you are all set, sir.
Thank you, everybody.
Good afternoon, sir.
How are you?
Could you please state your name and spell your last name, please?
Name is Anthony Flematti. Last name spelled Flematti.
And how are you employed, sir?
I'm a acting lieutenant at this time for the Canton Fire Department.
And how long in total have you worked for the Canton Fire Department?
Got hired in 2015, July 2015, so coming up on 10 years.
And prior to working with the Canton Fire Department, what, if any, other work did you have within sort of the same field?
So in the same field, I worked for the Athol Fire Department for a few years, hired in 2012, March 2012 until July of 2015. So just transfer departments.
And even prior to working with the Athol Fire Department, did you work as an EMT anywhere?
Yep. So I worked as an EMT for American Medical Response out of Springfield and Holyoke. Worked for Fallon Ambulance. Started basic level of EMT around 2008, and then just different private ambulance companies around the state.
And just starting with the EMT side of it for the first, what, if any, training did you receive or education did you receive prior to getting your certification as an EMT?
There's different levels of certifications for EMTs. The EMT basic starts out with about 6 months, a couple nights a week for about, like I said, about 6 months. Take a certification, practical, and written examination for that to get your basic level, and then you move on to the paramedic level of schooling as well.
Can you describe for the jury a little bit about sort of what that paramedic level of schooling is?
So the paramedic schooling starts, it's about 12 to 14 months, depends on the program, which school you go to. Night school 2 to 4 times a week for about 14 months, and then you start going into a clinical phase where you go into the different operating rooms, emergency rooms, OB/GYN, cardiac CCU, ICU. You do about 300 hours of education in that. Once you've completed a bunch of skill checkoffs under the supervision of an RN or a doctor, depending on the room, you would then clear that section of your schooling and then move on to a ride time phase, which is about 200 to 300 hours, depending on skills, what you need. That would be either in a fire department or a private EMS under the preceptorship of a senior paramedic that would kind of walk you through how to do the job and shadow you and supervise that you're doing things appropriately. You do that for about 200 or 300 hours. You write up different documentation, basically learning how to do it out of the clinical set and then more in the field set. After that, you would, whatever job you have at that point, you would do an additional practical assessment, again, about 6 or 7 different stages of evaluation for physical skills. Then you would do a written test, again, with the state. At that time, it was the state of Massachusetts to certify you as a paramedic. Then after that, they have another 2 to 6 month preceptorship within the department to acclimate you to the physical location that you're working in.
And so there's a written portion and a practical portion to both the EMT as well as the paramedic training?
Yes, that's right.
And you successfully completed that and received certifications in regards to both.
Yes.
And those certifications, are they something that is just sort of a one-time blessing, or is that something that has a continuing educational component and recertification?
That's correct. So every 2 years, we have to do a 48-hour refresher. So it's continuing education classes as far as national core curriculum classes that the national standard holds us to. So it covers different topics that they mandate that we cover every 2 years.
And your certification is up to date at this point, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
You mentioned that you're currently a lieutenant within the Canton Fire Department, is that correct?
Yes.
And how long have you been, have you had the rank of lieutenant?
I'm a temporary acting lieutenant, so I've been that since, I believe it was February, up till this time.
And within the town of Canton, how many fire station or firehouses do you have within Canton?
So we have 2 different stations, headquarters and Station 2, that we operate over.
And do you work specifically in one, or does it sort of rotate between?
Depends on the rank. So as a firefighter, we rotate through the different positions, or different stations. As the lieutenant, and the lieutenant right now at Station 1, so headquarters.
And where is Station 1 located?
99 Revere Street.
And with respect to each of the 2 station houses, how many sort of different vehicles and apparatus are located in each?
So we have, depends on what's obviously in service for mechanical issues and stuff, but we have a primary engine, a backup engine. We try to have at each station. We have 1 tanker truck, 2 ladder trucks. We have 2 primary ambulances and then a backup ambulance as well. So we try to have at least 1 engine, 1 ambulance, 1 ladder at each station, and then we'll have the backup pieces for that. And I believe our tanker truck right now, or our water truck, is out of Station 2.
And Station 2, where is that located?
7 Sassamon Street.
Now, as far as the sort of shift, how many people are assigned to, when you're assigned to, let me ask you this first. When you have a shift, what hours is that shift sort of concern?
So for shifting or shift work, it's 8 a.m. to 8 a.m. the next day. So we're 24-hour shifts. We'd have a 24 period off from work, another 24, and then we're off for 5 days.
And when you're assigned to a certain shift for that 24-hour period, are you assigned to sort of a specific duty or truck, or how does that work?
We're usually just assigned to a specific position for either the 10-hour or the 14, depending on rotations, overtime, that kind of stuff. But we're usually assigned to an individual piece or individual position for that shift, at least, whether it's a day shift or the whole 24.
And so starting with this, the ambulance, if you're assigned to the ambulance, how many people and what are the different roles in the ambulance?
So the ambulance, we have 2 people assigned to the ambulance. We rotate either through seniority or through care level, whether you're paramedic, EMT. If you're both paramedics, then we go by seniority and swap back and forth for call volume and teching, who's in charge of the call. And then we would also cross-man with the ladder as well. So depending on the call that comes in for service, we would either, on a fire call, we can take the ladder, medical call, we can take the ambulance.
And with respect to the engine, how is that sort of divvied up, or what are the different roles on an engine?
So the engine, if we have a full staff of 13 members, we would have 4 people on the engine. If there's a couple people off vacation, that type of thing, we could do, it's the driver, the step, and then the lieutenant in charge of the engine.
Now, if I could turn your attention to January 28th, into the evening of January 28th, into the morning of January 29th, were you working on that occasion?
Yes.
Okay, you were working 8 a.m. on the 28th until 8 a.m. on the 29th, is that correct?
That's correct.
And which firehouse were you working out of on that occasion?
I believe it was Station 1 at the time.
And what was your assignment in relation to that shift, whether it was ambulance, truck, or engine, whatever?
That would have been Ambulance 1.
And who, if anyone else, was assigned to ambulance 1 along with you with that?
At the time, I was working with Matthew Kelly. Matthew Kelly. We have a lot of similar names.
And what, if any, disparity was there between sort of the experience that you had versus the experience Mr. Kelly had at that time?
So Mr. Kelly had just started with the department at the BLS level at the EMTB, probably 2 or 3 months prior. I had just finished up his preceptorship, getting him onboarded as a new hire in EMT, so very minimal experience at that time.
So fair to say, any sort of medical calls, you would have been sort of what they call the lead paramedic, is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, with reference to that particular time frame, 28, 29, what, if anything, were you aware of as far as sort of weather forecast?
And so leading into that shift, I knew there was a storm coming, and I'd always lived a good distance away from work. So I would try and tie overtime shifts in so I wouldn't have to commute more than once back and forth. But with the storm coming, wanted to not have to drive into the weather. So I picked up overtime the night before that shift.
And about what time did you arrive the night before?
The night before I arrived at 6 p.m. 6 p.m. is the start of the shift.
And so you were essentially on shift for a relatively significant period of time leading into this morning of the 29th, correct?
That's correct.
And you mentioned that there was a storm that was forecasted. What, if anything else, do you recall about sort of what type of storm or what was predicted?
Predicted it was going to be a pretty significant storm, heavy winds, heavy snow. Not something I wanted to drive in the morning. So if the opportunity arose, I took the overtime for that night.
What did it turn out to be as far as?
Exactly as predicted. We hadn't gotten much snow up until about midnight or so, and then snow developed since pretty much then on.
And in a moment, I'm going to ask you about a call around 6 a.m., but just if I could take back a little bit before that, over sort of the overnight shift, did you have any dispatches or calls that you responded to, say, after midnight but prior to 6 a.m.?
I don't believe so. I don't recall how many calls were prior to that. That one was kind of the key of the night.
So you mentioned sort of, what, if any, memory you have as far as like sort of when it started to snow?
It would have been after 10 p.m. for sure, but I'm not sure exactly.
Now, turning your attention to a little bit after 6 a.m., you get a dispatch for a medical call, correct?
Correct.
And just prior to that, what about time did you sort of get up, rise, and sort of start doing things around the station that day?
So shift change usually happens around 8 a.m. in the morning. it takes a while to get everything ready for normal business hours. We try and get the station prepped for public that come into the building or just people passing, going around. We try to prepare the sidewalks, the apron. So we get up around 5:30, if depending on call volume throughout the night. Sometimes we're up throughout the whole night. But we got up that morning around 5 to shovel, snow blow, salt the public walkways and type of thing.
And specifically when it comes to the apron, that's sort of the area in front of the garage doors, is that correct?
That's right.
And so why is it so important to sort of clear off the apron as far as snow is concerned?
Yeah, so as far as in front of the apparatus doors, it's a very limited height clearance between the top of the fire apparatus and the actual garage bay doors. So a few inches of snow would be enough to cause us to bump into the ceiling of the apparatus garage doors. So we have to keep that relatively almost bare to be able to pull the apparatus out without causing any damage.
And about what time was it that you and the other firefighters at your station started to sort of clear off, whether it be parking lot, the apron, or anything else as far as snow?
I'd say about 5:15, 5:30.
And at the time that you get this call, shortly after 6 a.m., about how much snow was on the ground at that point?
It's probably 4 to 6 inches.
And this dispatch that comes in shortly after 6 a.m., what was the dispatch in regard to it, and where were you dispatched to?
So we didn't have much information going out the door, just that there was a man on the side of the road. And we knew due to the weather, there could be a significant call. So
before I leave in the part on that, just for 1 second, when it comes to when you're outside sort of shoveling off the apron and clearing some of the parking lot, in addition to the snow, what, if anything else, did you note as far as sort of weather conditions, visibility, things like that?
So visibility was extremely poor. High winds, probably 20, 30 mile an hour winds. Temperature probably in the 20s with still actively snowing at that time.
In the winds, to the best of your recollection, was this something that was just sort of a gust, or was it sort of persistent?
Sustained winds and then probably gusts as well.
And so you received this dispatch, and you, I'm presuming, get in the ambulance and go, correct?
Correct.
And if anyone is in the ambulance with you when you respond?
So responding in, I had myself, Matthew Kelly, and Firefighter Nutall had come in early as well to try and beat the storm and get in on time, because he was scheduled to come in at 8 a.m. that morning anyways. But with the heavy snow, wanted to make sure he could get in and be able to relieve the people coming off.
And within the ambulance, where was everybody sort of situated on route to the call?
I believe Matthew Kelly was driving, I was in the passenger seat, and Nutall was in the back of the truck.
And as far as during the course of your going from Station 1 to the scene on Fairview Road, what, if anything, did you know as far as sort of the road conditions, visibility as you were driving?
So that neighborhood is actually relatively close to the station, so you normally get there in a couple minutes, but it was slow driving over there. So I remember going pretty slow to get over to the scene.
And as far as this particular time of day, what was sort of the lighting like at that point? Had the sun come up or anything like that?
Sun had not come up yet. It was still dark, heavy winds, heavy snow, so visibility was almost zero.
And as far as what, if any other sort of apparatuses from your station were dispatched to this call as well at the same time?
So the other call would have been, or the other vehicle would have been Engine 3, and just Engine 3, Car 5 will sometimes go. That's the shift commander for the department, depending on the nature of the call, how it comes in, and the ambulance. So it would have been the 3 apparatus.
And do you recall who, if anyone, was in either Car 5 or the engine?
So Car 5 would have been, at the time, Captain Wendell Robery. And the engine, it would have been Frank Walsh, Katie McLaughlin, and the lieutenant for the engine was Greg Woodbury.
And you mentioned it took a little bit longer than without the weather to get to Fairview Road. Is that correct?
That's correct.
If you have any idea approximately how much time elapsed between the time that you received the call and the time that you arrived on scene?
I'd have to refer to the EMS report. That is going to be more accurate, but I believe it was 5 or 6 minutes.
And to that point, with any call, there's an EMS report that's prepared by, who is it prepared by?
So it's usually the person who texts the call or is in charge of the call. This was an ALS level call, so it would have been myself.
So you wrote as far as the report in relation to the EMS arrival, and within that is contained sort of different times that things happen along the way, correct?
Correct.
And the times that are noted within that report, is that something that's noted as it's happening, or is that something that you go back and figure out at a later time?
So as we're going through the call and radio messages are sent, that's all documented on a third party that documents timestamps, things like that. As far as on scene, transport, clear from the hospital, that type of thing. It's all third party documented.
May I approach the witness room?
Yes.
I'm showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 160. You see that portion of the report, sir?
Yes.
Okay. First and foremost, what I placed before you at Exhibit 160, that's your report, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And on that right column of the 7th page, what, if anything, do you see with regard to times?
So we have our dispatch time 6:06, en route time 6:07, on scene 6:14, at patient 6:15, and we have transported from that scene at 6:27 and arrived at destination at the hospital 6:45.
That destination hospital would have been Good Samaritan Medical Center, is that correct?
Correct.
If you could, going back to sort of your dispatch from Station House to Fairview Road, can you describe sort of the path as far as what route you took to go from one to the other?
Yep. So from Revere Street, we've come out, taking a right onto Revere Street, gone to the end of that road, taking a left on Sherman, driven all the way up to Chapman Street, taking a right on Chapman Street, gone up to Fairview Street, and then taking a left on that. And that would brought us down to the address.
And as you're coming down Fairview, are you familiar with that area?
Yes.
Okay. And so as you're coming down Fairview, is there any kind of grade or elevation to the roadway as you're coming down?
Yep. So that is a downhill towards about halfway down the road. So a pretty good grade that's coming downwards.
And the address that you're responding to with 34 Fairview Road, when you're coming from the direction that you were coming off of Chapman, is that a residence that's on your left or right or something else?
That would have been on the left.
And when you arrive on scene, what, if any, other sort of vehicles or apparatuses do you observe beyond sort of the target described as a?
So we had the fire apparatus. There's another vehicle, bystander vehicle, that was on scene as well. I don't recall if police were on scene at that time, but.
And when you first sort of pull up to the scene, what, if anything, is it that you observe even prior to getting out of the truck and the ambulance?
So as we're pulling up the scene, we see two female parties, non-uniformed personnel, that were going back and forth between the body and the side of the street, back and forth. Appeared to be a female party that was pushing on his chest and then going back and forth between the other female party and the patient.
Again, so when you first sort of pull up, you're able to see the body on the ground. Is that correct?
It was, yeah, you could see a body, but it was very hard to see that distance away.
And do you recall any sort of like overhead or ambient lighting, street lighting, or anything like that illuminating in that area?
I don't recall.
Now, this individual, as far as the person on the ground, at some point you were able to subsequently identify who that was. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Who did you identify?
So identification won't normally happen right at that bedside. That's not really relevant to initial treatment. We found out who it was when we got into the ambulance. We were able to do a more thorough search once interventions had started.
So when you first arrive on scene, fair to say you're primarily your own sort of concerned with patient care, correct?
Yeah, correct.
To the point you sort of tunnel vision to the patient, correct? Yeah. So you arrive on scene and you get out of the ambulance, and where is it that you go?
So we then go grab all the equipment that we're going to need to work on the patient, and then we bring that equipment over to the patient side to be able to start treatment.
All right, Mr. Flematti, I'm going to stop you there. I'm going to stop you, Mr. Lally.
Now, Firefighter Tony Flematti, when we had left off the other day, you had arrived in the area of 34 Fairview Road. Is that correct?
Correct.
And when you arrived there, what, if anything, did you do upon your arrival?
So on arrival, positioning the apparatus is going to be our most important thing, trying to figure out where our patient is and parking our apparatus close enough, especially at nighttime, that we can light up the scene as well as we can. Try and figure out how to approach a scene, because if we have to trek equipment farther distances, it can slow our response down. So we try and make sure our arrival and positioning is as best as we can put it.
And as far as positioning in reference to when you first are sort of pulling up on the scene, where are you in the ambulance again?
So I would have been the passenger of the ambulance. Usually the tech that's leading into the call will sit on the passenger side to try and mentally get ready for what's going on, whether it's reviewing protocols or just trying to assess the information coming across the radio so you can update your treatment plan as much as you can before you even see the victim.
Hey guys, I didn't realize I was on, my mic was
So we
muted.
have a fire apparatus that are helping light up the scene, but we also have two female parties
So
going by to the victim on the side of the road,
yeah.
going back and forth between
but
that
hopefully we're getting
person
through these
and the
testimonies.
side of the road.
Okay.
And
Thanks for being here, guys. I don't know if the
You can see a shape of a person, so we
if
know
the
that's where the
chat
patient is.
comments
We
are
reported that there was a
working still,
party on the side of the road, so
but I appreciate
seeing
you
a
guys
body shape
here.
that clued us that that was where we were headed.
in addition to the ambulance that you're in, how many other vehicles are on scene when you get there?
When I get there, I believe it is engine 3 and car 5.
And beyond sort of vehicles from your department, what many other vehicles do you see when you get there?
If I remember correctly, it was just a personal vehicle. I don't remember if there's any police cars on scene at that time.
And from your orientation when you pull up, where is the body positioned? To your left, your right, or something?
To my left.
And so after the ambulance is positioned, what do you do?
So then it's going to be bringing all the equipment over to the patient side to be able to extricate them from that situation, whether it's a house or a street or a road. We assess where they are, and then the best tools to get them out into the ambulance to be able to work effectively on the patient.
When you proceed over to, now, again, at some point subsequently later on, are you able to identify who the person on the ground is?
Yes, we will try and get a general idea of the age of the patient, the positioning of the patient, how they were found, and then when we get them into the ambulance, we can start identifying ways to register that patient in the emergency room. So identifiers, whether it's a license or witnesses, or we try and figure out who they are so they can get registered at the hospital.
And at some point, were you able to identify who this person was?
That's correct. His wallet was in his pocket, and we were able to grab his license.
And who were you able to identify?
That was John O'Keefe.
And so, with reference to Mr. O'Keefe, when you first put him on the ground, how far away from the street or the roadway is he?
Say approximately 10 feet away from the road.
And how is he positioned as far as how is his body positioned?
I have to reboot, but I believe he was supine on his back.
Just in general terms, first, when you're responding to a call of this nature, what are some of the protocols that you're speaking about? What is it that you're seeking to do or assess when you first arrive?
So we're trying to determine if it's a cardiac arrest, whether it's a viable transport or workable arrest. We have certain protocols within the Massachusetts protocols for whether we work the patient or we relieve the patient on scene if it's a police matter, if there's injuries not sustainable with life. So we're trying to make that assessment before we make any decisions.
Let me stop you there just for 1 second. You use the term as far as cardiac arrest. Based on your training experience, what do you understand that?
The cardiac arrest, to the best of my knowledge, is just the cessation of electrical and mechanical activity in the cardiac muscle. So the cardiac muscle pumps blood throughout the body, and when that stops, all life stops after that.
Now,
You seriously just asked that?
in particular reference to the conditions, the weather conditions that you find yourself in, what, if anything else, is sort of on the scale of spectrum in regard to diagnosis?
So cardiac arrest, depending on where they're found, we try and figure out what led them to be at that point. So we're looking at weather conditions as well. That can also affect viability of resuscitation. So due to the extreme weather, extreme cold, we'll attempt resuscitation on that patient due to the fact that it'll prolong viability of the arrest or ability to recover from cardiac arrest afterwards. So weather is definitely a key factor in where they're found.
And you're familiar with the term based on your training experience called hypothermia.
Correct.
And so what, if any, sort of relationship does cardiac arrest have? Well, let me ask you this first. What is your understanding of the term hypothermia?
Exposure to extreme cold that lowers your core and extremity temperatures down to below 95 degrees usually.
And what, if any, interplay is there between hypothermia and cardiac arrest?
So like I said before, it'll prolong how long they'll preserve the body after arrest. So if somebody's found in like a cold water situation, there's been multiple reports of patients recovering after being drowned in cold water for up to an hour. So viability is definitely improved by the cold weather.
As far as viability is concerned, you talk about in your assessment. What are sort of the steps that go into your assessment?
So we're looking at obvious signs of death. So we're looking at exposure of brain matter. We're looking at traumatic injuries, decapitation, things that would basically be non-life sustainable. We're looking at signs of lividity and rigor to basically show us how long the patient has been down for.
And the age of a particular patient, what, if any, relationship does that have to your assessment?
So it'll show the extent of frailty the patient has. If somebody's an elderly patient, severe cancer patient, their ability to sustain a cardiac event like that is less. So somebody that's younger or middle-aged will have a much better chance of recovery afterwards. But that would really be the only key that we're looking at.
And what,
Okay,
if any,
Barbara, I just have to ask.
during your assessment?
Is there anyone else that's chatting with you? I only see your comments. Yeah, hi and bye, French. Danke. And no English. Okay. Those are literally all the comments I see on yeah.
That's all we have.
And as far as the other things that you're talking about, as far as viability or resuscitation, what, if anything, did you observe with reference to Mr. Keith in regard to that?
So with viability, we're looking at any rigidity or rigor in the body or lividity or separation of blood. You'd have a pooling of blood or bruising, it would look like at the lower parts of the body, depending on how the person's positioned. Basically, if they're supine, you'd have positioning or pooling underneath the body. And then you would have stiffness of the arms, legs, jaw, neck to be able to move the body. We're looking to, if they don't have those things present, it's another check mark of saying this is viable, we can work this.
And specifically as it applies to your assessment of Mr. O'Keefe, what, if anything, do you recall in regard to that initial assessment as far as viability?
So his limbs were able to be moved, jaw was able to be moved. The posterior of his body was red, so not the indicative of lividity that we're looking for. So we termed it to be a viable arrest and continue to work.
You mentioned as far as sort of gathering your equipment, bringing it over to Mr. O'Keefe, what, if any, equipment did you gather?
So equipment initially is going to be our scoop stretcher to be able to pick the patient up, break apart, put it underneath him. We have a first in bag, an airway bag, cardiac monitor. We'll bring all that over to the patient's side to be able to do as much as we can in that situation. But due to the weather, we wanted to get him out of the weather because that was one of the things that was hurting him at that point, is getting him into the warmer ambulance and beginning the warming process. So get into an area where we assess the patient thoroughly with good lighting and to be able to expose the patient, begin the warming process.
And when you go over to where Mr. O'Keefe is, about 10 feet off the roadway, who, if anyone, from your department goes along?
So I have Matt Kelly with me and Tim Nutall. I also have Frank Walsh, Katie McLaughlin, and Greg Woodbury, and Captain Robbery.
And as far as the sort of initial assessments on the ground with Mr. O'Keefe, what, if anything, were sort of each of those respective people doing with regard to Mr. O'Keefe?
I'd have to review specific interventions as far as who did what when, but that's why we document things immediately afterwards, so it's all fresh. So CPR was initiated by me and ALS assessment as well. So I can go over individual interventions if you'd like, but it's really cool.
And for the record, sir, you're looking at exhibit number 160. What page of that are you looking at?
It says 205 of my EMS report, but there's also the NFIRS report on top as well.
So initially, when you go over to Mr. O'Keefe, how many other people are sort of in that area at that time?
So in the area, we have the first responders, and then we have the two female parties on scene.
Where were the two females in relation to Mr. O'Keefe?
So as we're approaching the scene, they were kind of in between us and the patient. So we try to gather as much information as we could from them as we could.
So once you make that determination as far as viability of resuscitative efforts, sort of specifically, what are you and the other firefighters doing in regard to those efforts with Mr. O'Keefe?
So we're beginning CPR. We're trying to establish good quality CPR, get the patient onto our stretcher, begin an IO, start medication, start ventilating the patient. All this, the all of the conditions that the body has, we're trying to remedy through intervention. So we're trying to breathe for the patient. We're starting to press on his chest to do CPR to cause cardiac muscle to compress and spread blood through the heart, cardiac muscle, cerebral brain. And we're trying to reverse what's happening in the body.
Now, as far as when Mr. O'Keefe, you observed him on the ground, what kind of snow did you observe on or around him in that area?
So the snow was probably up to the mid-axillary point. So we're looking at probably halfway up his rib point. Top of his body was clear.
And do you know about how much snow was covering his body up to the mid-axillary?
I'd say probably about 4 inches, 4 to 6 inches.
Now, as far as your observations of Mr. O'Keefe when he's on the ground, what kind of observations did you make as far as how he was dressed?
For the exposure, I'd say he was pretty underdressed. Long sleeve t-shirt, jeans, nothing really substantial to be out in that type of weather.
And at this point or any subsequent point, what if any observations did you make of Mr. O'Keefe's footwear?
By the time so our first priority is obviously going to be treating the patient. His clothes do matter, but it's on the list of priorities, not huge. So by the time we figured out he was missing one of his shoes, we were already at the hospital at that point.
And do you recall which of his shoes he was missing?
I don't.
And as far as that missing shoe, was that something that you or any of the other firefighters, paramedics were needed to have removed on scene pursuant to any sort of treatment?
Nothing would have been done through the feet. It would have been just exposure of the patient to see possibly the extent of frostbite, if it had started affecting his extremities, fingers, nose, that type of thing, hypothermic reaction there.
Would that be something that would have been removed by one of you or one of the other firefighters while he was on the ground?
If it would have been removed, both of them would have been removed. To assess that, it wouldn't do much good to just remove one and leave it there on scene.
Now, as far as the two females that you observed, did they sort of remain in the same position you initially observed them? Did they move around?
They kind of cleared a little bit away from the scene. I would say they moved off to the right of the apparatus, so we could work on the patient at that time.
And what, if any, conversation or what, if anything, did you ask either of those?
So how the patient was found and what brought them to that situation is critical. So we're trying to figure out as much information past medical history that we can of the patient. So we're trying to find somebody who has knowledge of the event. So as we approach the scene, begin to talk to one of the females. What is going on? Why are they there? What's going on? Just what happened?
And you say you're speaking to one of the two females, is that correct?
That's correct.
Do you see any of those females in courtroom today?
That's correct. Ms. Reed.
Could you just identify as to whether Ms. Reed is seated or not full clothes?
Okay.
That's the record.
Okay.
Now, with regard to one of the two females that you were talking to, was that Ms. Reed or was that somebody else?
That was Ms. Reed.
And why, if at all, were you talking to her versus one of the other females that you observed?
She seemed to be the one that was most personally affected by it, so we figured she had the most information about why the person was there.
And what, if any, observations did you make of her in regard to your conclusion that she was the one who seemed the most personally affected by it?
She was the most distressed on scene, obviously upset, so personally related to or had a relationship with the person.
Before we get to conversations, what, if anything, did you observe Ms. Reed or any of the females doing with reference to Mr. O'Keefe's body when you first started to come up to this?
So I would characterize it as an attempted resuscitation. She was attempting to do CPR, but due to their erratic behavior, she was running back and forth between the other female on scene and the body, back and forth, trying to press on his chest, wake him up, talk to him, just to no avail.
And as far as your conversation with Ms. Reed, what kind of questions did you ask in regard to demographics or anything else?
So do you have any information of who this is? How are they here? Try to get any type of information we could from her at that time, but with no luck.
When you say with no luck, what, if anything, what kind of response did you receive from Ms. Reed in regard to your question?
So the only response that I was personally given was just, I hit him. Oh my God, I hit him.
And when she said,
Oh,
oh
whatever.
my God, how loudly did she say that?
So she was within 2 feet of me, but very loud. Any type of follow-up questioning, did you hit him with your hand? Did you kick him? What happened? She just repeated the phrase over and over again, I hit him, I hit him.
And just to be clear, where does this conversation occur?
This was as we're bringing equipment over to the patient. The interventions are going to be started basically by whoever gets over to the scene first. I'm trying to gather information as a lead paramedic to try and coordinate interventions and therapy to kind of holistically be the team leader in that situation and transport the patient. So it was on approach to the patient, probably halfway between the ambulance and the patient.
And with regard to that treatment of Mr. O'Keefe, you referenced it earlier being in your report, what were sort of those steps or what, if anything, to do in the other firefighters do with regard to? Before you answer that, Your Honor, may I request, may the witness just refer to the EMS report as it goes?
Yes, if need be.
So we try and document through our flowchart of all of the interventions that we're doing. So CPR is obviously going to be our first priority. CPR is initiated, unchanged but successful in the actual intervention itself, no complications. We do our ALS assessment that we talked about of any further indications of this is not a viable arrest. We determined it was a viable arrest and we move on. We're going to start we refer to it as a bag valve mask at 15 liters per minute on oxygen. So the patient's not breathing on their own, so we're trying to assist ventilating that with high flow oxygen as well. And Easy IO, which is a needle we put into the bone of the tibia of the patient. That was on the right tibia was the first one we put in. We're going to be putting in warm fluid. We have a warmer in the back to be able to bring up the core temperature. Then we start with epinephrine, 1 milligram through that IO.
I could just stop you there for 1 second. When you say as far as IO
Mhm.
put it into the leg, how is that sort of inserted?
So we have two different methods we can do. We have a drill, a power drill that drills through the outer layer of the bone into the capillary area of the bone, soft spongy material. So we drill through that, or we can do it by hand if that fails.
And when it comes to that epinephrine, what is sort of the purpose of that medication? What are you trying to do with that medication?
So that medication will improve, it's a vasoconstrictor. It'll cause the vasculature to constrict. So it'll improve the quality or effectiveness on the cardiac muscle, cardiac vasculature, and cerebral.
Hey guys, I'm not sure who's here. StreamYard. Now I can't even put in a comment that's going through on StreamYard. It's almost 7 o'clock. I know we're only halfway through, not even halfway through Flematti's testimony. So I think what I want to do, hopefully we can get the StreamYard and YouTube and everything will be better tomorrow. That way I have more interaction with you guys, and you know, it's always more fun to be able to chat with you guys. We'll pick this up tomorrow. I'm assuming right around 5 o'clock. The reason I do it at this time is because right now with the Corey Richens case going on, I wanted to do it, you know, stream this at a time that worked for people that were going to watch that trial, and you know, and wanted to maybe come over here afterwards, or so we'll try it tomorrow around 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And then for tomorrow, if you guys want, we can discuss a time going forward that maybe works better, if it may work better for everyone. And I'll be crossing my fingers that the chat and everything is fixed by then. All right, so let's stop here with Flematti, and I appreciate you guys for being here, and we'll see you tomorrow. Okay, bye.